All right, we're going to get started, everybody. So take your seats. Please take your seats. Here we go. I know. I didn't realize it was already 9:02. Okay, we're going to get started with this meeting, everybody. Sometimes it's hard to remember what time it is, but we're actually a few minutes past 9. So it is 9:03, and I'm officially calling this meeting to order. Welcome. This is the Sandag Board of Directors meeting. It is Friday, November 18, 2022. And before I move forward with the agenda, I'd like to ask our interpreter how we access interpretation services. Carlos?
Good morning. Buenos días. I will begin with the announcement in Spanish, and I will be back with the announcement in English. Muy buenos días. Bienvenidos, bienvenidas. Si nos está acompañando vía Zoom, se está ofreciendo servicio de interpretación. Para hacer uso de este, por favor, desplácese a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen sus controles. Ahí haría clic en el icono de interpretación, parece un globo terráqueo, como ven en pantalla, y ahí presionaría Spanish o español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom en celular, tableta, etc., presionaría primero los puntos suspensivos, luego interpretación y luego el idioma. Por último, si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Audio o silenciar audio original. For those of you joining us via Zoom, interpretation is being provided to and from Spanish. To use the feature on Zoom, please scroll down to the bottom of the screen where the meeting controls are. Click on the interpretation icon. It looks like a little world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through the Zoom mobile app, you would press More, the 3 dots, then Interpretation, and then choose your language. Si nos está acompañando en la sala de juntas de Sandag presencialmente y necesita interpretación al español, por favor diríjase a la recepción del piso 7 y solicite un receptor. El receptor se parece a un pequeño iPod y se puede usar para escuchar la reunión en español. Simplemente sostenga el auricular junto a su oído y la interpretación comenzará automáticamente. Now, if you're joining us today in person at Sandag, For interpretation into English, please check out a headset from the receptionist on the 7th floor. The headset looks like a little iPod and comes with an earpiece, which you can use to hear any Spanish comments or questions translated into English. You would simply hold the earpiece to your ear and the interpreter will come on automatically. Gracias and thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Now I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next, we're on to public comments. Do we have any in-person and virtual public comments?
Chair, my apologies, but we've just been doing a recount and realized that we don't actually have quorum for the meeting at this time. We're short one member, so we will probably need to pause.
I see. Okay. Well, we will take a pause. We've just been informed we do not have a quorum, so we're going to wait for one more person to come. Are we expecting another person to come?
We are. The second vice chair is on her way at the moment.
Okay, great. Okay, we are back now. We have established a quorum with the mayor from National City. So take your seats and we're going to resume this meeting. So we're going to start the meeting back here at 9:24. And just as a reminder, this is the Sandag Board of Directors meeting. It's Friday, November 18, 2022 at 9:24. And I'm going to ask for quiet from the board members so that we can begin our meeting. We'll go ahead and have a roll call now. So I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. The City of Carlsbad is absent. For the City of Chula Vista, Councilmember McCann. Present. For the City of Coronado, Mayor Bailey. Here. For the City of Del Mar, Councilmember Drucker. Here. The City of El Cajon is absent. For the City of Encinitas, Chair Blakespear.
Here.
The City of Escondido and the City of Imperial Beach are absent. For the City of La Mesa, Councilmember Shu. Here. For the City of Lemon Grove, Mayor Vasquez.
Here.
For the City of National City, Second Vice Chair Sotelo Solis.
Present.
For the City of Oceanside is absent. The City of Poway is absent. For the City of San Diego, Seat A, Councilmember Campillo.
Here.
Also for the City of San Diego, Councilmember LaCava.
Here.
The City of San Marcos is absent. The City of Santee is absent. For the City of Solana Beach, Mayor Huebner.
Here.
Councilmember Zito and Councilmember Edson are also present. For the City of, the City of Vista is absent. And for the County of San Diego, Supervisor Anderson.
Here.
Thank you. For advisory members, Imperial County is absent. For the California Department of Transportation, Ann Fox.
Here.
Thank you. Metropolitan Transit System is absent. For North County Transit District, Councilmember Edson.
Here.
For the U.S. Department of Defense, Executive Director Keck. For the Port of San Diego, Joe Stuyvesant.
Here.
For the San Diego County Water Authority, Director Katz.
Here.
For the San Diego County Regional Airport Authority, Gil Cabrera.
Here.
The Southern California Tribal Chairmen's Association and Mexico are absent today. And that concludes the roll call. We do have a quorum.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. And so we'll move to our public comments now.
We do have several virtual public comments. We'll start with Will Johnson, who will be followed by Alex Wong. Will, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Okay. Hi there. My name is Will Johnson. I work at United Taxi Workers of San Diego. I'm speaking on item 16 today regarding the...
Oh, I'm so sorry. If you want to make comments on item 16, can I please ask you to hold those comments until we take that item and I'll call on you at that time?
For sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just for a reminder for everyone else, this is the time for public comments for items that are not on today's agenda. So if you do wish to speak on a different item, please raise your hand at that time. So I'll go to Alex Wong, who will be followed by the person with the phone number ending in 435.
MTS reported at their November board meeting that special events since March have generated nearly 800,000 additional trolley trips. Comic-Con alone generated 246,000 additional trolley trips over only 5 days. The Friday of Comic-Con saw a ridership of 160,000. That's an increase of 54,000 riders over the previous Friday. Fortunately, MTS responded by running a special events service every 15 minutes on top of operating regular Blue and Green Line service between Balboa Avenue and 12th and Imperial every 15 minutes all day from Thursday to Sunday of Comic-Con. This is amazing. Other light rail systems like that in Minneapolis still have not restored pre-COVID frequencies. But the trolley has not only fully restored pre-COVID frequencies, it has doubled midday weekday frequencies on the South Bay Blue Line, even while opening the brand new Midcoast trolley, and on top of all of that, added extra service for special events. Because of improved service, the trolley has consistently enjoyed the strongest post-COVID ridership recovery of any light rail in the US and Canada. Now imagine if MTS gave up 34% of its operating revenue. A third of all MTS service would go away. Instead of a trolley every 15 minutes, riders would wait 20, maybe even 25 minutes during peak hour. That's unacceptable. And the special events line that's carried 88,000 riders during Comic-Con would be gone. Instead, all those 88,000 riders would be driving, plunging downtown into apocalyptic congestion. But who would give up 34% of MTS's operating revenue, you might ask? Surely that could never happen. Sadly, it's happening. Because 34% is exactly the amount of operating revenue MTS recovered from passenger fares in 2019. In Sandag's regional plan, calls for free transit for all MTS riders by 2031 means that the 34% will be completely gone. Sandag tells us not to worry. The free sales tax ballot measures will more than pay for free transit, improved frequencies, and transit expansion. Nothing could be further from reality. The first of these free ballot measures, the Let's Go San Diego Citizens Initiative, failed to even gather enough signatures to be put on the ballot this year. The other two measures will likely not be citizens' initiatives, meaning that voters must approve them by an incredibly difficult to achieve two-thirds supermajority to pass. Add to this the fact that MTS will run out of Transnet operating dollars by 2028, and you have the recipe for a fiscal cliff, service cuts, and ridership declines. In light of how scarce transit operating funds are, Sandag should cancel its ambitions for free fares. It should instead save and invest all the money it can towards building a new trolley yard, buying new trolleys, and hiring new drivers to increase frequencies once the COVID-induced driver shortage ends. I never expect transit in America to operate profitably. I will gladly pay more taxes to improve transit, but please spend those taxes on improving frequency rather than making transit free, and in so doing, eternally doom transit to low frequency, low ridership mediocrity. I'm Alex Wong, reminding you to put frequency first.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be the person with the phone number ending in 435, who will be followed by Mike Bullock.
Good morning. This is Robin Joy Maxson, Chair of the Ramona Community Planning Group, speaking today as a private individual. With a commitment to equity, Sandag should expect and welcome a new advisory board member onto the board of directors. Sandag's board is composed of representatives from each of the region's 19 local governments, and additionally empowers and recognizes the contributions and needs of advisory representation. These members hold unchecked and unequal power over the planning and funding of the unincorporated communities without providing a balanced voice for a population of approximately 500,000 residents, which comprises the second largest community in the county. The unincorporated communities cannot lead nor effectively participate in their own future without a seat at this table of regional power. Currently, 2 San Diego County supervisors represent county interests on the Sandag board. In theory, this is where the unincorporated communities find their representation. However, county supervisors also represent their urban and suburban populations. The assumption that unincorporated communities are represented through this structure and do not need additional representation is flawed, as all Sandag board members and advisory board members are within the County of San Diego, and therefore are already provided such a dual overlay of jurisdictions and representation. The exception is the 2 advisory board members from Imperial County and Mexico. I propose that the unincorporated and predominantly rural communities of San Diego County be recognized and admitted as an advisory member on the Sandag Board of Directors. This new San Diego County Unincorporated Communities Advisory Board member would represent the unique needs of our geographically disadvantaged populations, including their health, safety, housing, and work opportunities, the concerns of the agricultural industry, development of the agritourism industry, the growth of the outdoor recreational industry, and the protection of our vast open space preserves, which are a county treasure. I propose that a selection of a San Diego County Unincorporated Communities Advisory Board member and their alternate should come from among one of the 28 elected community planning groups chairs and appointed community sponsor group chairs. These 28 community planning and sponsor group chairs would select a representative and alternate every 2 years, beginning with January of 2023. San Diego's commitment to equity is on the line. This new San Diego County Unincorporated Communities Advisory Board member requires a seat at the table of regional power, and we expect that a chair will be waiting for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be Mike Bullock, who will be followed by Blair Beekman, and Blair will be our final public comment on this item.
Good morning, Honorable Chair and board members. Mike Bullock from Oceanside, and I always start by saying I do support the 5 big moves. However, as I have said, the 19% reduction in per capita driving by 2035 with respect to 2005, as required by SB 375, is too little, too late. The latest, just released CARB scoping plan calls for a 25% reduction by 2030. So that's 5% more, and it's 5% sooner. You don't seem to believe me, but do you believe CARB? We must work for climate stabilization. Destabilization is an environmental impact. No matter how many illegal environmental impact reports ignore it. Your legal advisor should tell you that destabilization is an environmental impact that should be covered in a legal EIR. Your first responsibility is for the health and safety of your constituency. Destabilization is the opposite. Why does COP26, COP27, and the CARB scoping plan use 2030 as the requirement year? SB 375 and the county regional decarbonization platform use 2035. That date is a throwback to 2005 in Executive Order S305. The reason that both you and the county, I would say the reason is that both you and the county don't seem to care enough about human survival to do the research and figure out that the climate scientists are telling us what needs to happen by 2030, not 2035. I missed your meeting where you took action to start the long and expensive process to do the wrong thing. Remove the RUC from the 2021 RTP. I listened to that unfortunate meeting. There were many statements that are very questionable. It was, for example, stated that the RUC is speculative. Actually, the RUC is inevitable. We must electrify our fleet very fast. The gas tax revenues will therefore accelerate downward. Operating and maintaining our roads requires an enormous amount of money each year. We must replace the gas tax with a means-based road use charge as soon as possible. The gas tax is not socially equitable. We must stop dragging our feet and embrace the changes we need. UN Secretary General of the UN recently stated, quote, "We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot on the accelerator." He also said, "We're getting dangerously close to the point of no return." Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Blair Beekman.
Hi, thank you. Blair Beekman here. Thank you for the words of the speakers today and to the previous public comment. Good luck how we can learn from the lessons from previous electrification processes of mass transit systems throughout the country, and an electrification process in San Diego is amazingly important. And good luck in your efforts to learn from other agencies, learn to improve from other agencies. With 230 on my clock now. My name is Blair Beekman. I've been attending a few SANDAG meetings now. I was a bit busy yesterday. I was at a SANDAG meeting yesterday, and I was going in and out, and I'm sorry about that. I'm a little embarrassed about that now. There was an important meeting in San Jose also taking place, so I was trying to do two things at once. I am from the San Francisco Bay Area. I am just I'm moving down to the San Diego area. Last month, you talked about a future of a broadband program. And ideas of helping to bridge the digital divide. Within the same week, the city of San Diego was talking about upgrading services with AT&T broadband in the tune of $18 million. So, you know, obviously something really serious is happening. And I wonder how ready you guys are for this. I'm not so sure. I wasn't understanding what the future of bridging the digital divide issues and these broadband expansion things are about fully. I hope you can go into better detail about that and make that more clear in the future. And what I've been trying to explain, I work hopefully towards a future of tech accountability for local communities. And that means openness, and that means, you know, real accountability with community, and community has a real voice in the process. A real good luck that you're going to have to, our future is not just dumping in a ton of surveillance technology and broadband technology and data collection tech and saying we're innovative. The innovation in our future comes from learning as we're placing this important technology, as important as bridging the digital divide is, we have to learn to connect with community in how we can place that in a community. We have to have open conversations with neighborhoods, neighborhood associations, and for broadband installers, they have to offer a clear notification process and offer, a 21-day, say, appeal time, at least, for people to appeal the process if they want. It's learning to work together on those terms, where broadband is truly needed and where it may not be. That's community working together. That's the kind of stuff we really have to work on towards our future. Thank you.
Thank you, and Chair, that concludes the public comments.
Okay, thank you very much to the public for your comments today. So our CEO Hassan is with Secretary Buttigieg this morning. So Colleen will do the CEO report today. So I will hand it to you, Colleen.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome everyone to the final meeting of the SANDAG Board of Directors for 2022. So thank you for all your work over the last year plus. We are really grateful to all your contributions. There have been a lot of exciting things happening in the region, and not the least of which is today, where Secretary Pete Buttigieg is here in San Diego visiting the site of the new border crossing. And this is great because we're really able to thank him for the $150 million that is coming to the region to kick that project off. But this was just less than a month ago, he was here visiting the region and looking at the Lausanne corridor and the bluff and the improvements there. And so we're really getting national attention. We were able to bring him out here right after receiving the $300 million state award to work on that project. We're going to be convening actually a working group as we work through that and looking not only at the tunnel portion that SANDAG is leading, but also the whole 350-mile length of the Lausanne project. But really pleased to have that federal representation here. In addition to the Secretary, Mayor Gloria is with Hassan, as well as Supervisor Vargas, and then the state of California Lieutenant Governor as well. And so we already heard comments coming out of the press conference that the Secretary said SANDAG has distinguished itself as a real leader. So I think that's really exciting to have that. Many of you probably also saw in the news that President Biden was here and also visited the Lausanne corridor. And so to have elected officials from the federal level saying Sandag and knowing what Sandag is doing is really exciting for all of us and all of you as well. A few other things that I just wanted to mention, that we're coming up on our 1-year anniversary of the opening of the Mid-Coast. And so that's a huge accomplishment for the region, and more than 2 million riders have used the new Mid-Coast line since it opened a year ago. So that's great. A couple of things on the regional plan. So it was earlier this year that the board of directors took an action for staff to begin an amendment to the regional plan. That work is underway. We've hired a consultant team, and we anticipate that we will have something before the board of directors this summer that then we can submit to the state of California for approval. And not to confuse anyone, but at the same time, we're also working on beginning work on the next regional plan that will be due in 2025. So we will be posting a notice of preparation for an environmental document for that plan. So that's going to be coming out at the same time. Anyway, we're working really hard to not confuse folks. Along those lines, we just launched a new Sandag website. It's been in the works for about 10 years. So we're excited. Come visit the new website. We've really tried to simplify the interface. Some of the things that we've added are really to be able to know who the staff are here, so that you can find out who the people are, what different jobs we do, and how we can directly be contacted. So really trying to make that more accessible to the public. And then I also wanted to mention just kind of where we are on office space for Sandag. I think Hassan mentioned at the last meeting that the lease is up in this building in September. And so we are working right now with a broker, and that was included in the delegated actions by the executive director to help us look at office space that will best suit the agency, whether that's here or in another location. So looking for the best, obviously the best deal that we can possibly get, and to help the organization be as successful as we can in the work that we do. So we'll continue to bring information to the board of directors on where that stands. And I think those are the key things that we wanted to cover, and just thank you again all for your service, and look forward to continuing to work with you in whatever capacity that might be in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any public comments on the CEO report?
No, we do not.
Okay, and I think we have a special visitor that Colleen is going to introduce now from Miami-Dade Transportation Planning Organization.
Thank you. Yes, it's truly my honor to introduce to you Eileen Bouclé, who comes from us from the Miami-Dade area in Florida. I like to say, you know, it's the Miami-Dade version of Sandag. And there are so many things that we have in common in terms of the coast, in terms of population, and a lot of things that we're working on together as a region. And Eileen had been up in Los Angeles for a conference, and we were able to have her come down and just share some ideas and things that they are working on that I think are very similar to what we're doing, but also present some new ideas. So with that, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning, Chair Blakespear and members of the board. It is truly a pleasure to be here today and addressing you this morning on matters of transportation. Thank you for this invitation. I believe it's important to share and discuss transportation issues that we share in common. That is something that our agencies frequently do. As your CEO, Hassan Ikrata, and myself collaborate often for the benefit of both of our regions, which are highly similar, and which I'll be presenting to you in a few minutes. And we do this in order to exchange best practices and lessons learned, since we share a lot of the same issues in transportation. So there's great benefit to that. I'd like to start off, first of all, by really recognizing you and congratulating you as a board for the great work that Sandag has done historically and continues to do. And just the CEO report this morning by Colleen really says it all. But really, Secretary Buttigieg's presence this morning with Hassan in recognizing you for your Otay Mesa East Port of Entry, highly innovative, technology-infused project really shows the leadership that you have nationally on these types of issues that are not just national, but international for this border crossing. It's very important border crossing. I'd also like to congratulate Sandag for your 1-year anniversary of your mid-coastline, your one-ticket ride from the border to University of California, San Diego, and your major employment centers. This project, though unique to San Diego, is part of similar transportation issues that we face in Miami-Dade County, which I'll be sharing with you. Our SMART plan, which stands for the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit Plan, and our attempt to also connect to major employment centers and universities and colleges as well. So your project stands as a model for us to look at. I'd also like to, in particular, applaud and congratulate you for your commitment on advancing bicycle and pedestrian issues, not just here in Sandag, but nationally as a model. I think it's outstanding that you have completed 11 miles of dedicated bicycle lanes in your master plan of a separated, dedicated bicycle network. That is something that we would like to see move nationally as well, and it's something that we're also looking at doing at in Miami-Dade. So really, I'd like to recognize and acknowledge you for the great work you're doing. Again, it's a pleasure to be here. I do want to put a plug in for Miami-Dade County, as yesterday we were part of that announcement for US DOT Transit Development Award grants, and the state of Florida received exactly 2 awards, and both of them came to Miami-Dade County, and both were for 2 projects in our SMART plan, the Northeast Corridor and the South Dade Transitway. I have a very short video clip in a few minutes, and so you'll know what those 2 projects are about. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and give you a very brief presentation on our issues and our shared common interests in transportation. For an overview about us, as you may be aware, Florida is the 3rd most populous state in the nation, behind California and Texas, we're 3rd. And in the state of Florida, Miami-Dade County TPO, we are the largest MPO in the state of Florida by population. But if you see the map in front of you on your slide and you see the blue segments on the slide, this is really the concentration of population in the state. So 59% of our total population live really in 10 counties, with the majority being in the Miami urbanized area, those 3 boxes, if you will, in the lower part of the state: Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach. So we are collectively known as the Miami urbanized area. We rank in the top 10 regions nationally, with just over a population of 6 million. I love this slide because it really shows the similarities between San Diego and Miami, and in particular, Sandag and Miami-Dade TPO. As you can see, we have similar populations. Another interesting fact is that we are both single county entities. And when you look nationally across, the country, most organizations such as ours are multi-county, multi-jurisdictional, but this is something that we have in common. We're both single county. We both have rail lines that serve our public. The Bright Line in particular is a private rail passenger project and was launched and starting in Miami, and is already in operation in Miami-Dade County and is continuing north. They are building to Orlando, and they have plans for West Coast to Tampa. So we work very closely with our private sector Bright Line passenger rail service. We have almost similar amount of miles of urbanized coastline, though we're on opposite areas of the country in terms of coastline. We share a lot of issues because of that, and we have many millions of visitors every year. So we're very similar, and because of that, we share a lot of the same transportation concerns, and that is why Hassan and I do collaborate often on the different initiatives and projects that are being implemented. This is the Miami-Dade Governing Board. We are a 24-member board. All 13 Miami-Dade County commissioners serve on the Transportation Planning Board. We are the designated MPO, Metropolitan Planning Organization, for Miami-Dade County. In addition to the 13 county commissioners, we have the largest municipalities. We have 34 municipalities, the largest in terms of population, over 50,000, serve on our board, as well as the smallest population municipalities on our board, as well as our school board, which is one of the largest school districts in the nation by student population, as well as our Expressway Authority. So we have a large board. We're very passionate about transportation, very engaged. And our chairman sends his best regards. He was unable to be here today for a commitment in Miami-Dade County, but he is very committed and very much a champion on peer exchanges and delegations with other organizations such as yourselves. And we value you as a partner in these exchanges. And this is the second time that I've been here. We did come here in 2016 for a peer exchange as we were starting the SMART plan, and we appreciate that partnership going all the way back to then. So a little bit about our SMART plan. Again, I'm sure everyone here is very familiar with BART, the Bay Area Rapid Transit. So you can think of BART and kind of morph that into MART, Miami Area Rapid Transit, though that doesn't sound as nice as SMART. So our plan is the Strategic Miami Area Rapid Transit. And so we are very proud that upon the development of the SMART plan, which I'll be sharing with you now, it was fully unanimously adopted in 2016. We have now we have transitioned from the SMART plan to the SMART program and implementation phase this year. This is a critical milestone for us. But why are we doing that? Because of the population within a 2-mile radius and the employment base along a 2-mile radius of the SMART plan corridors, such as yourselves, for your projects. This is what we look at to serve with our public transportation population and employment. You can see the third bullet as transit-oriented communities. We have transitioned from transit-oriented development to transit-oriented communities with very innovative land use and zoning approach that we've taken in Miami-Dade County. I did want to sneak a slide in here this morning about our telecommuting pilot, and we have formally designated telecommuting workforce group as part of our transportation model in Miami-Dade County, and we are modeling with assumptions that a certain percent of the workforce is telecommuting at any given time on our network, and we're starting to explore how that looks like on our network, and we have an active pilot program. But I just wanted to share the results. These are both local and national responses to the type of basic questions such as the rate of telecommuting before COVID, during COVID, and the expectation after COVID. We're pretty much in line with national responses, and so I would expect that the same would be here in Sandag, and this is something that we, both our agencies will be looking at in the future, as far as how we can flatten the curve, if you will, for congestion with the use of technology and telecommuting. The Miami-Dade TPO, just like Sandag, is involved in various activities, but in the SMART plan, of course, we collaborate with our partners for NEPA, as your deputy CEO mentioned, your NEPA currently going on, but our land use and visioning studies are something that we've undertaken that are part of our federal applications that are very aggressive in showing how the future of our corridors look like. As I said, we're transitioning fully to a transit-oriented community model. That's the next level and iteration of our development of our transit. We also develop our financial models, and we have a demonstration program, which I'll be sharing with you. And before my video clip, the other slide I wanted to share is that our chairman has championed the expansion of our transportation and in terms of land use and zoning around our transit corridors to have higher density and more of a transit-oriented community approach as we build out on these corridors. I'd like to share a brief video with you about our SMART plan on in this next segment. Thank you.
One of the important roles that the TPO has is to form transportation policies and create partnerships that help satisfy our transportation goals.
In 2016, the Miami-Dade TPO Governing Board established rapid transit as the highest priority for the county. The TPO Board unanimously adopted the 6-corridor SMART plan and funded the required environmental studies. Since then, several key project milestones have been accomplished. The TPO board also adopted a Smart Plan demonstration program focused on advancing first and last mile connections and new technology options for the region. Between 2018 and 2020, 37 demonstration projects were approved in coordination with the Florida Department of Transportation, Miami-Dade County, the Transportation Trust, and municipal partners, providing new mobility options countywide. As part of a comprehensive multimodal approach, the TPO board adopted the Smart Trails program, providing key pedestrian and bicycle connections to the rapid transit corridors. The success of the Smart Plan has been based on strong regional collaboration, and as the plan continues to advance, coordination at the federal, state, regional, and local level will continue to be essential.
As I mentioned earlier, Miami-Dade County is composed within the designated census of the Miami urbanized area. So we do meet regionally. We are a national model of regional collaboration as we've entered into a voluntary memorandum of understanding as a 6 million population region, where our 3 MPOs meet under a regional MPO. And so when we meet regionally, it is referred to as the SMART region, because 4 of our 6 corridors do cross county lines and serve the larger population. So we're very focused on regional collaboration as well as SANDAG is, so that's another thing that we share in common. One of the items that I discussed with Hassan that I wanted to share today is the success of our demonstration program, and this is something that Hassan and I have discussed in terms of selecting some of our common transportation issues and piloting or testing certain solutions or applications that we can launch concurrently and test on both coasts for proof of concept to try to advance some issues that we struggle, primarily your first last mile. This is something that SANDAG is very concerned with and does struggle and does work actively into your plan. We're very proud of our program. It has an infusion of technology-based solutions as well as your regular fixed route circulators. Since its inception in 2018, we have developed 44 of these projects. It's very popular. These are new services, and this allows us to provide proof of concept in terms of latent demand. These are new services not available to our residents before, that they can be car optional and take some of these first last mile public transit or rides that allow them to go to and from existing and future smart stations or smart corridors. And when we sit down and meet with our federal partners, we can show proof of concept in terms of demand for that network. So our goal is to have that first last mile network fully built as we are also advancing the major tier 1 transit investments in our region. We do post on our website quarterly reports on our SMART demonstration program, so we do provide the ridership cost benefit. We're very flexible in terms of checking in on our projects, and if it's not performing in a manner that we forecasted, we will take a step back and revamp and even cancel out the project and launch a new one if necessary. And that is the benefit of a pilot or a demonstration, is to allow you to work in real time and provide proof of data, proof of concept, as opposed to a longer term project. We can have immediate benefit to the public while being highly responsive in real time. I have a short video as well in a minute. This is a Smart Step street enhancement program. This is our Complete Street. It is an award-winning program and something that Hassan and I have discussed. We are testing right now complete street projects in designated urban and non-urban core areas of our region. These are the same transportation issues and priorities that SANDAG struggles with, everything from special needs, transportation, ADA, to bicycle, pedestrian, and how do we address them within our larger network.
The Smart Street Transportation Enhancements Program, commonly referred to as Smart Step, was developed in 2021 under the TPO task forces.
one of the extraordinary things that we did was we created the urban and non-urban mobility task force. The idea was that as we transition from the SMART plan to the SMART program, we address first and last mile solutions for all types of populations, whether it's people who are walking, cyclists, people with special needs. We can do those things, and we are doing those things. We have some great demonstration projects because we understand that it's going to be a system, it's going to be a program, and that program is going to move Miami-Dade County forward.
SmartStep was created with the goal of facilitating interagency coordination, innovation, and accelerated project implementation of pedestrian and bicycle improvements that increase connectivity and enhance safety. The success of SmartStep comes from the strong partnerships the Miami-Dade TPO has with the Miami-Dade County Department of Transportation and Public Works, the Florida Department of Transportation District 6, Miami-Dade County Parks, Recreation and Open Spaces, and Miami-Dade County municipalities. SmartStep launched with 11 projects throughout Miami-Dade County. The Miami-Dade TPO chose urban and non-urban corridors with high pedestrian and bicycle traffic in need of innovation. It is important that residents know the Urban Mobility Task Force is addressing mobility challenges within the urban core by making improvements to major crosswalks, increasing resources for the visually and hearing impaired, and through the implementation of scramble crosswalks, providing pedestrians an entire light cycle to cross.
Through this task force, we have found ways to collaborate. And the reason that matters is we need these projects to be implemented quickly. Our residents have safety concerns on our streets. We know the solutions. And finding a way to work together, cities, county, FDOT, it's really important to bring these projects to life, get our folks across the street, down bike lanes, and walking around safely, but with a quick implementation plan.
The Non-Urban Task Force is leading the charge in the non-urban core areas by fully upgrading intersections with high-emphasis pedestrian crosswalk markings and green bicycle lanes, installing and upgrading ADA ramps at intersections, and turning a gravel pathway into a permanent pedestrian walkway from the Palmetto Metro Rail to the industrial park located north of the station.
Basically, what we're doing is connecting the transit, upgrading crosswalks, and dedicated green bike lanes that we're adding to ensure more safety for our residents here. And so when you bring all of those things together, what we bring about is true safety for the community.
Together, we are facilitating various improvement projects that increase connectivity and enhance safety for the residents of Miami-Dade County.
SmartStep, to focus on addressing mobility challenges that bicyclists and pedestrians face every day.
So once again, this program has been recognized at the state level and nationally as well. So we're very proud of this program. I'd like to close out with just 2 more slides. Miami-Dade TPO leads our region in terms of peer exchanges and delegations, and we also conduct our summits where we bring together industry. This is another best practice that I know Hassan and Sandag also lead in. So this is something that we find that, since we share common issues, sharing common solutions really benefit all of us. So this is, an opportunity for an exchange. We also have just recently launched our 2050 long-range transportation plan, which we're calling Smart Map 2050 for mobility, accessibility, and prosperity. And we very much look to include things such as urban air mobility, which is something we're very focused on right now from freight and passenger perspective, and other interesting things. And I'm sure we'll continue with that collaboration. Madam Chair, I'd like to thank you for your time, you and the board. I appreciate, again, your invitation, and if there are any questions, I would be pleased to address them. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for coming across the country to present to us. We really appreciate your time and what you're doing on that coast, so thank you very much. We will see if there are public comments first.
Thank you, Chair. We do have a few public comments. First, we'll go to the interim public comments. Tim Bailish, you can go ahead when you're ready. And after Mr. Bailish will be Alex Wong on Zoom.
Thank you, Board. Thank you for this meeting and welcome to our visitor. I actually was a resident of Florida for some years and tried to pay some attention, so you've got quite a job on your hands, so congratulations. I just wanted to make a few more comments if the presenter was interested in any of them. In the Tampa Bay area, there's some contrast with that I see with San Diego. Tampa is kind of like a box because of the coastal line continuous with most of the state. And I see San Diego sort of as a box, as an L, rather than a box. We don't really have a lot of east-west traveling available, particularly mass transportation in the northern parts. And so that might be a contrast in terms of some of the transportation solutions. How do you fill in the box in Florida, as opposed to how do you make an L work in San Diego? I just offer that. I'm interested both in Sandag and in Florida, how the younger population, 15 to 25-year-olds, are integrated into the planning. Many of these are not yet in working situations, do not appear on the map, maybe learning about different things. And I think since they are the stakeholders for the future, how do you reach the 16 to 25-year-olds for their insights into their own needs at the moment, but the future needs? And then the funding for the transportation issues. These are both high visitor areas, and are travelers appropriately being getting into the funding streams, or is it being reliant on the residents through the taxation or other resources to provide the funding for the projects? Congratulations to our visitor and to Sandag, and hopes for your continued efforts. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Alex Wong, who will be followed by Blair Beekman.
I believe that when designing the airport people mover, Sandag could best pay attention to Miami-Dade's already existing Metro Mover, because Metro Mover is the most successful automated people mover system in the country. And that system is what I believe is a Siemens. Is it Siemens? But anyhow, it is one of those people mover technologies. Oh yes, the Bombardier and Innovia APM automated people mover technology is found not only in airports around the world, but as Miami has demonstrated, also within urban areas, using this people mover technology to serve dense urban areas. And I think that San Diego really ought to use the same people mover technology to serve a dense urban area, not only serve the airports, but possibly the new Midway district with the sports arenas development and Navor, because these people movers have more capacity than even arguably a trolley, because while these people mover vehicles are small and they carry less people, maybe 200 people instead of like 450 people per train, like a trolley would, they come much more frequently. They can come every 2 minutes instead of every 7.5 or every 15 minutes. So they can provide 4 times, if not 5 times the frequency. And that's really a bonus for visitors, because no one really likes to wait. And that will drive up ridership because of that superior convenience. And think about all those crowds you might have at the sports arena after a game. You're going to have a lot of crowds. And if you can have a train that comes every 2 minutes, well, there's not going to be a huge crowd that accumulates. You'll only have people waiting at the platform for 2 minutes. That's a small crowd that accumulates, and then you kind of whisk them away just 2 minutes at a time, 200 people at a time every 2 minutes, rather than having a huge crowd that accumulates and then, say, waiting for 7.5 minutes at the station before a big trolley train comes and whisks them all away. That way you can really reduce the overcrowding at the station. And also, the reason why Miami-Dade's people mover really moves a lot of people and is the most successful people mover system in the country is because it's already connected to a very high capacity and pretty high frequency grade separated metro rail, heavy rail system. And the same can be said for San Diego. The people mover will directly connect to the light rail system, the trolley. And as in Miami, instead of trying to build a metro rail to serve every nook and cranny of downtown, and so do a lot of branching and really divert a lot of frequencies, what they've done instead is make this separate system, the Metro Mover, so that this system can run independently and not dilute metro rail frequencies in the trunk. And you can And I think San Diego should do the same, just build this separate system to serve the airport Midway that it uses a separate technology so it doesn't divert a lot of the capacity on the trunk where demand is great.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Blair Beekman, who will be followed by Nicole Burgess, and Nicole will be our final comment on this item.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. Thanks a lot for this item. In moving to San Diego from the San Francisco Bay Area, or returning, I suppose, I'm impressed. I'm interested in the combination of how to talk about the future of technology, surveillance, and data collection accountability, not just on a local neighborhood community level, but on a national level, and with issues at the border. Hopefully that could be of interest to the speaker today. A really interesting report. Thank you. Her work in Miami, it has similarities to San Diego in being a border area of a nation. And so thank you. There was, a lot of things mentioned. I guess first, is the project called the SMART project? Is that the planning stages of SMART, or is it going to be called SMART once fully implemented? Because I think the word strategic in the front of a mass transit agency, it's a little disconcerting to me as a person of the public. I'm a bit taken aback. It seems too national defense sounding if that is going to be the actual name of a mass transit agency in use every day. Just a comment from myself on that. And with that, I'm really, really interested in the future of open, accountable practices with the future of our technology and surveillance and data collection. I feel it's just incredibly important how it creates a future of responsibility and a shared process between community and government. And that creates trust. And I think it's just amazing what it's capable of in the future. It offers good guidelines, good structuring, that we can all understand good rules of the road. Good luck how we can work on that. There's a lot of smart street designs that was talked about here. I hope I'm pretty sure Miami already has a pretty good surveillance technology ordinance ideas going and in place that I hope you'll want to continue to want to grow and look into. Long Beach may be another city that has a few interesting ideas. It's a port city that has a few interesting ideas in surveillance and tech ordinance from the ACLU things. But what makes San Diego truly unique is that I think they're ahead of the game in that the community itself can be involved in the process, which is just amazing to me and kind of why I'm down here. In most other cities, it's still kind of government-led and community follows and thanks and like myself, thank you. But here in San Diego, there's a real interaction that I find really interesting, it's really important to me. Good luck how you can take that back to Miami. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final commenter is Nicole Burgess. You can go ahead.
Good morning, Chair and Board. Thank you so much for the time to speak. And thank you so much, Eileen, for the wonderful presentation and working with Hassan to bring this, these concepts here to San Diego. My name is Nicole Burgess, and I just love being outdoors and traveling near and far on my bike. So I'm an advocate for safe streets in this beautiful county and all these 18 beautiful cities that these leaders are here and part of. I love pilot projects, quick build for safe streets, connecting and enhancing safety. Those were some major key things I heard. And moving people by foot, scooter, bike, stroller, wheelchair, all of those things can activate us, socialize us while providing healthy, meditative, wonderful ways to experience our cities. It brings ecotourism to the finest. And I just want to say congrats and thank you. And I appreciate you working with Sandag, and I look forward to working with you more. So thank you. And just as a reminder, as a Safe Streets for Advocates, this is a World Day of Remembrance for those who have lost loved ones in traffic violence. And I invite all of you leaders, 4:30 tonight, and I look forward to seeing some of you. So thank you again, and I look forward to safer streets in San Diego.
Thank you, and Chair. That concludes the public commenters on this item.
Okay, Councilmember Shu, did you want to make a comment on this item?
Actually, I had a comment or question with regards to the director's report, but I can do that at a later time. I do have some questions for our presenter, actually.
Okay, let's try to make them brief because we're already far behind schedule.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, I'll just make it real brief. Give us a secret or two about how to inform the public about innovation changes with regards to where you're going.
I think that Sandag is doing a phenomenal job with that already, but I can share some of the things we're doing in Miami. Like Sandag, during the pandemic, we had to pivot to virtual outreach. And we find that keeping that going has a lot of benefit for us. So we have actually an award-winning program called Taste of Transportation. And we bring in all of our transportation partners from the state to municipalities and other agencies. We provide the public with the latest and greatest of all the capital programs and work programs and what is going on. In addition, we're very active embedding ourselves and going out to other public community meetings and events. And we set up, like Sandag, we set up a table filled with facts about transportation and what's coming up. We're very, very aggressive in our outreach, and we do everything we can to solicit input. We are trilingual, Spanish, Creole, and English. And we also have an e-weekly newsletter and an e-blast, and we solicit information that way as well. So every and all forms similar to Sandag is what we are constantly involved with. Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So next up, we have the chair's report. So I'm going to be making a few remarks here as part of the chair's report. So first, we had two subcommittees that are sunsetting here. And so I just want to say thank you to the people who formed them. They are the Litter Abatement and Regional Equitable Housing Subcommittees. And I'll just say that on the Litter Abatement Subcommittee, we formed this because there were a number of us that were very concerned about the amount of litter and trash that was accumulating along the freeways, our Caltrans right-of-ways. And it wasn't entirely clear to me how this committee would operate, but there was, as the chair of the committee, it was clear that the transportation agency in this county is the right agency to be interacting with Caltrans because there's no other agency that could, and individual cities have a hard time making headway on it. So we started it by having a series of different hearings, essentially kind of like congressional hearings, where Caltrans presented to us, and we had Adopt a Highway presented, TARP Your Load events presented, CHP presented, and a number of different stakeholders who are involved in why do we have so much litter on the freeway and what can we do about it. And one of the great things about this was that the governor's office was watching, and we were shining a light on this. And so the governor's office then came up with the idea of Clean California, which put millions of dollars into cleaning up the highways. And Clean California now provides grants and opportunities for cities and jurisdictions like Caltrans to apply for the cleaning up the freeways. And the freeways are definitely cleaner, and I really appreciate that. I want to recognize Ann Fox, who's here on behalf of Caltrans today, Gustavo Dilarda, excuse me for butchering his name, but he has been a tremendous partner. He's been the most engaged on this topic since I've been on the Sandag board, and I've spoken with multiple of the directors about this topic since I've been on the board. And I've been just so grateful for the partnership and the serious engagement that Caltrans put into dealing with litter. And I hope and expect that it will continue in future years as well. So I want to particularly thank those who were on the committee. It was Mayor Serge Dedina, Councilmember Kaylin Frank from Poway, Councilmember Vivian Moreno from San Diego, Councilmember Ed Musgrove from San Marcos, Mayor Lisa Hebner from Solana Beach, and Councilmember Joe Green from Vista. So thank you for your work on that subcommittee. And then we also are sunsetting the Regional Equitable Housing Subcommittee. This was formed by Supervisor Tara Lawson-Remer, and the members who participated in this committee got together over multiple different meetings to discuss housing acceleration. And then there was a bill that Senator Wesso put forward, and unfortunately it did not make it all the way through, but it's the beginning of work on essentially bringing housing money that other regions get to this county. So there is housing money available at the state level, and it is other parts of the state have mechanisms in place to funnel that money to their counties, and we do not yet have that. So I want to particularly thank the members who participated in that committee: Mayor Todd Gloria from San Diego, Councilmember Joe LaCava from San Diego, Mayor Lisa Hebner from Solana Beach, Councilmember Jack Hsu from La Mesa, Mayor Alejandro Sotelo Solis from National City, and Supervisor and Chair Tara Lawson-Remer. So thank you to those who participated in that, and that might also be a future committee of some type that would be relevant, might be formed in the future at SANDAG. So I'm also going to make a few other comments because this is my last meeting as the chair and on this board, and it's several members' last meetings. You probably all recognize that we barely had a quorum, so we had just 10 members here, and we will have at least 8 new primary board members in the next session. So this is an unusual amount of transition, and it's also a leadership transition. So it's board transition and leadership transition. And it's important to take a moment to recognize, I think, as the chair, I just want to say a few words about the 6 years that I've been on the board and the things that I have been really impressed by. So I see Judy Ritter is up there. We will go to the list of the people in a second, but I just want to say a few words before that. So I became a member of this board when I became the mayor of my city of Encinitas, and SANDAG was doing a very controversial project, a planned project, the Coastal Rail Trail project in my city at the time. And my experiences with this board and then also with the staff, it really has showed me, and I want to recognize that the staff of this agency is really second to none. So the commitment that they bring, the expertise, the recognition of the importance of working with communities, the responsiveness. There is an unprecedented level of excellence here at SANDAG, and it's been my honor to be the chair of an agency that has such great people working for it. And so I'd like to just give a round of applause. Hassan is not here, but I'd like to give a round of applause to all of the staff who does all this amazing work. And I also want to recognize that the projects SANDAG does are amazing. So the Coastal Rail Trail was built in my city, and we went to the Coastal Commission on Appeal, and SANDAG staff was arm in arm with the city of Encinitas the whole time. And now that it is in my city, 1.3 miles, it is an absolutely beloved part of our community that could not be more successful. I am so glad that it was built, and it is beautiful. And there are a number of other things from the Build NCC project, which is SANDAG together with Caltrans, that a bike and pedestrian bridge over the lagoon, a connection between multiple parts of the city that didn't exist before. All of these things I just want to mention are not because I'm the chair of this agency or even on this board. These were projects that were started many years ago, and I just happened to be sitting in the seat at the time the projects came to fruition. But I did have the opportunity to work with the staff members and also recognize that there are always discretionary turning points. And I think it's worth recognizing, I want to recognize Gary Gallegos, the previous executive director, because ultimately he said to me, do you want this project in your city? And I said, yes. And that question, that straight question, and then the ability, he could have put us at the back of the line. And if it was something that the elected officials didn't want in the city, it was the idea of let's work with the willing. Do we really want this? Do you want this project as the mayor in your city? And I appreciate that he asked me that and that he then proceeded to execute on that. And it was part of the plan, like many projects are part of the plan. But why do some things make it across the finish line and other things don't? It really, the hand holding, the arm in arm that happens between local government, regional government, and state and federal government as well, those are all key parts of it, which is why it really matters who we elect, because those are people who are representing the community. And I also was on the hiring committee that hired Hassan. I think Hassan is a visionary person who who was unanimously chosen in a bipartisan vote to bring him to this county from Los Angeles. And he had a very clear and articulated vision, which he has been proceeding to execute against. And it's been very controversial at times. And also we've had a very divided board. And I foresee that that will continue. And I hope that we are able to unite over the things that accomplish that shared vision for the future that we all want: the connectivity, the mobility, the ability for people of all income levels to travel where they need to go so that they can access their lives. You know, this is really what transportation ultimately is. And I think all the people who serve on this board and who work for the agency want those same things. I've also really enjoyed serving, I very much enjoyed serving under Mayor Steve Voss. He's not here today, the city of Poway, but I was his vice chair, and we worked very closely together, and I thought that was a great partnership. And I've really enjoyed serving with Mayor Gloria, who's not here today either, and Mayor Sotelo Solis as the leadership, because there are lots and lots of things that you're having discussions about, talking with staff about, and bringing a certain orientation to the board. And I've always felt that my role as the chair was to make sure that the board members could be heard, to make sure that the meeting could accomplish the goals that it needed to not unduly influence from my own vote, to be thinking about what it is that everybody on the board wants and accomplishing what the majority wants. And so those are values that I brought to this role, and I've been grateful that my colleagues selected me to be able to fill the role. I also want to just recognize some of the really great projects, the things that I'm most proud of that this agency has accomplished since I've been in the seat. So the biggest one really was opening the Midcoast Trolley. So that 11 miles, 9 stops, $2 billion, on time, on budget, allowing people to get to UCSD, students to get from all over this county to UCSD, to get buy one ticket at the border and go all the way into the heart of our city or the heart of our region, where there are jobs, where there are medical facilities. I mean, it's just truly transformational. And that project is a great example of what Sandag can do. And I was really so proud of the agency when we did cut the ribbon on that project, and I know it is being used by thousands of people every day. I'm also excited that we have an actual conceptual plan to get fixed rail from our airport. So this is something when I first became on the board and I was on the transportation committee, it's like, what are we doing about this major issue that we do not have fixed rail to the airport like every other major region in this country, it seems like, besides us. And so now, you know, there have been different NAVWAR, different ideas, but now we have the beginning of something which goes to the port property. I really want to recognize our port leadership, because I went and did a tour recently with Joe from the top of his office and looked down at how close it is from the port property to the existing fixed rail. We need to connect into the MTS and NCTD system and not think we're going to build an entirely new fixed rail system over an entirely built environment throughout this county. So getting from the airport to that fixed rail, this is a legitimate plan that hopefully will continue moving forward, and I'm very proud that this agency was able to do that. I also think it's important to recognize the regional plan that we have. Here in this region, it seems very controversial and bogged down, but the second you go outside this region and hear from other leaders and other staff members that are equivalent to Hassan and Colleen, but also other electeds, people look at our plan and think, wow, how are you able to accomplish that 19% per capita reduction of emissions and the shift over to more transit, as well as having bike and pedestrian projects and having a regional plan that meets all of these targets. You know, how did you get there? Because really it's a struggle. And so I'm proud of our regional plan. I really think the staff deserves tremendous credit for this. They really accomplished it almost despite the board, but it really is the case that the leadership was coming from recognizing we have to meet these goals, they're not optional, and we need to have a different way to get around in this county when we look forward to 2050. I also want to recognize as the chair and my personal perspective that I'm so glad that the work in the regional plan, the $160 million of work, is going to be good local jobs that are union, that pay a living wage, because this is these are government jobs. This is government work, and government should be supporting local people who can afford to live here and support their families with health insurance, with job protections. And so knowing that that work, the PLA that this board passed, that work is going to be supporting our workforce into the future, I think that's also something that I'm personally proud of, and I think we as an organization can be proud of. I'm also personally proud that we have reduced the amount of waste this agency is producing when it comes to plastic and otherwise waste. So you may have noticed we perpetually used to have water bottles everywhere, and since I became the chair, I really was strong on not wanting that and saying, like, we need to use, like, my hot water is in this cup right now. We do have mugs, but this is the cup it's in. And so having the events we put on be low waste, not utilizing so much plastic, making sure we're recycling effectively into the right bins in this building, we have to walk our talk. And so, when we're talking about all these climate things and then we are just producing tons and tons of waste and plastic, I really, that created a lot of cognitive dissonance, and I'm glad that we've moved away from that now, and I thank the staff for accomplishing that. The other major projects that we're working on are things that I have to mention, and they are seriously impressive. So breaking ground on a third border crossing, that is impressive. This is something this agency's been working on for decades, and it's going to be transformational for that part of the county and for our binational relationship. And then also the tunnel in Del Mar. So the railroad tracks need to function for that 350 miles section, that 350 miles that goes from this county all the way to San Luis Obispo. The fact that this agency was able to get together a design, working with the city of Del Mar, and a lot of very engaged stakeholders and NCTD to create a plan. So basically it would be a 2-mile tunnel underneath areas that are homes that are sensitive, and we would be able to have paths and parks where the current rail line is, but this rail line would still function. This is something that other parts of the state have not accomplished yet, that are very at risk, and they are looking at short-term solutions, and we are looking at long-term solutions. So the embrace of that future by this agency, really taking that by the horns and saying, we need to do this now, I'm very proud of that. I'm also very proud that we offered free transit for youth. This is a pilot project, but it's, when you can reduce barriers to entry and establish habits young, it means that people who use transit aren't just transit dependent people, it's people who are making that choice. And whenever you travel outside of this country and take transit and you see, oh my gosh, this is, or in this country, but in different places in the county that aren't so car dependent, you really feel like we could do this, we should do this. And I'm grateful that we are doing that through habit changes and reducing those barriers to entry, which are cost and also, basically cost by making it free. So I know this is a bit of a long list here, but I think those are the things that I want to highlight. And I just want to say again, I know that there are some people on the board who've been very unhappy with SANDAG and its decision-making and its voting structure. But this agency is so critically important to this county. I mean, the idea that it always really upsets me when I perceive that others are trying to burn this agency down, because we need to have a functioning transit agency that has the buy-in of board members and hire staff to accomplish goals, even when we don't all agree on the board. And we all are elected officials. We all face that in our own cities where you don't always agree, but you move forward in the best interest of the organization. And so I do truly hope in the coming years that the people on the board have the similar sense of reverence for what this agency is and does and the need for it, and bring a collaborative and collegial approach to this agency so that it can be successful, because we all lose if Sandag is not successful, and we do all win if Sandag is successful. So so I want to say a big thank you to my board members for serving with me, and also for electing me and choosing me to be your chair for the last 2 years. And I am looking forward to what this agency will accomplish. And as a state senator in this county, I hope to work very closely with Sandag to accomplish some of these transit goals that are now, or transportation goals that are now in process, so that we can bring money back to this area and have policies that we need, and make sure that we're continuing to be successful. So I want to recognize now the, thank you. So I want to recognize the board members. So there are some board members who we don't know if you'll be reappointed by your agencies and if you'll be on this board, but there are some board members we know will definitely not be on this board because they didn't run for re-election or what other circumstances. So I'm going to, we have 7 of them, and there are 6 of them are not here, and 1 of them is here. And so the one who is here will get a plaque, but that will happen after we go through the ones that aren't here. So Mayor Judy Ritter from the City of Vista, it is up. So this is what, is the next slide to say the next person, or is it a little montage of her? No, okay. So, and then there's Councilmember Chris Rodriguez from the City of Oceanside. There's Mayor Mary Salas from the City of Chula Vista, Mayor Matt Hall from the City of Carlsbad, Councilmember Bill Baber from the City of Vista. Actually, he's not from the City of Vista. He's from the City of La Mesa. Mayor Serge Dedina from Imperial Beach. And our esteemed second Vice Chair Mayor Alejandro Sotelo Solis from the City of National City. And I have her plaque right here, which you can see. And I will hand it to you with a big hug and say thank you so much. And I will ask the Vice Chair if she would like to say some words.
I too want to echo the sentiment of staff. You give of yourself every day to make our region stronger. You help implement the policies that this board, gives our very candid opinions on from all sides. And I just want to thank you, truly, from the bottom of my heart, from the community of National City. We know the importance of, as our chair alluded to, AB 805, that the voices of those communities who have not had the mic and the resources at different points in time. And so it really is my honor to have served as second vice chair, to serve on so many of the committees that from public safety to the military working group and even the regional housing equity subcommittee. It's about bringing the voice of our community members and the perspective that each of us has. And the Midcoast Trolley, I always tell the story. As a UC San Diego student, I remember living in the Pepper Canyon apartments, and right where the trolley drops off was our old apartment. And we used to say, oh, and hear about this trolley line coming to UC San Diego. We used to take me as a freshman 2 hours from National City to get to UC San Diego. Now you can get amazing service, even from, Tijuana or the border all the way up, from 40 minutes, 45 minutes or so. And you're lowering the carbon footprint. You are making a difference. And it was this team who really walked it through, from idea to shovels in ground to getting people on the trolley. And that speaks volumes to, again, the groundwork that has been laid for several generations, and the groundwork that we are laying that is going to be for several generations. So adelante, keep the energy, keep the momentum going, because this is just the beginning and I ain't going nowhere. So thank you so much.
Okay, and now I think Colleen wants to say, and then I'll call on Ann Fox. Did you want to say a comment really quickly here? Or at the end? Okay, go ahead.
So on behalf of Hassan and the staff here at Sandag, it's truly my honor to recognize you, Chair, for your hard work and leadership and dedication to the agency. And you went through everything here that you did, but you did leave one thing out that I truly appreciate, you being such a champion for housing and willing to take on some of those really tough conversations that are probably some of the most challenging conversations to have in the region because of Sandag's role or limited role in housing, although the important process that we are responsible for. I think we've all appreciated that you will show up for just about anything we've asked you to do. Hop on a bike at 6 a.m., whatever it is, whatever it took to help get the word out about the work that is happening in the region. So that's always been so appreciated. I had the opportunity to travel with you. We had a good time. We had some near miss with COVID, although I think you ended up getting it and somehow I survived not. But I think your dedication to always wanting to understand the issues and make sure that you were clear exactly what it was that was being presented, why, what would happen if this happens or that happens. So you really are such a good student of the agenda, which is not always the case for everyone. We recognize it takes time and dedication to do all of that. So congratulations on your new role in the state Senate. We are glad that you are not going far, and all the things you talked about that you loved, we will be coming to you to help us get legislation and money to make that all happen. So lots more great things to come here in the region, and I hope that you will look fondly back on your years here. You were elected unanimously by your peers in December 4th in, 2020, so 2 years ago. Just coming up on 2 years. So congratulations, all our best to you. We have a couple of things to give you. So you also get, did you say a lifetime bus pass? No, that's not included. That's not included. But also a lovely plaque. So like the others. Yes. We also have a gift, and we will be sending these to the other members too. Yours is on the way right now from the printer, Marilyn. But anyway, so there you go. Exactly, it's under $50. And then the other thing that we did provide to the chair is a photo album with some of the photos for the various events that you participated in. And in fact, the cover photo is of the retreat that we had earlier this spring, which, during COVID, we had to cancel the first retreat, but we were able to gather for a half day in Balboa Park and had some fruitful discussions there. So anyway, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. And I think Ann Fox, you have your hand up on virtually.
Well, thank you, Chair, also for your great leadership on this board, and second Vice Chair, much appreciation. And thank you both for your partnership with Caltrans. And if you will, I'd like to just talk a couple minutes on the litter subcommittee and some of the outcomes we've had. Okay, so again, thank you, Chair Blakespear and other early members of the subcommittee. Clean and safe communities free of pollution continues to be a passion for our District Director Delarda, and he regrets he could not be here in person to celebrate the conclusion of this subcommittee. In late summer 2020, we convened the Regional Litter Abatement Subcommittee together, in part due to the explosion of litter and trash in public spaces as we transitioned out of the early stages of the pandemic and all the behavior changes that came with it. With partners like I Love a Clean San Diego, waste management and hauling companies, law enforcement and Sandag board leadership, this subcommittee helped build the regional momentum to address an issue that was plaguing communities across the state and the nation. In July 2021, Governor Newsom launched the Clean California Initiative, a multi-year $1.2 billion cleanup effort to create thousands of jobs, remove litter, and engage communities in the beautification efforts across the state as part of the California Comeback Plan. I would like to briefly highlight some of the early successes that we've had due to Clean California in our first year. With employment, we've held 3 massive hiring fairs with each drawing several hundred applicants. We've had nearly 100 additional state workers in the region, 800 statewide, to newly established cleanup crews. Nearly half of all of our first hires have since been promoted to permanent positions with more responsibility, higher pay, and stability for them and their families. In addition, we expanded our contracted work programs with 9 new crews that provide at-risk youth, veterans, people experiencing homelessness or formerly incarcerated with experience in job skill training while cleaning the highways. Enhancements, nearly $300 million of grants for local beautification projects in underserved areas were awarded at the beginning of this year, including projects in El Cajon, Imperial Beach, and National City. Another $100 million of grants will be available early next year, and we encourage all the cities, counties, tribal governments, and transit agencies to apply. More than $300 million also went to beautification enhancements on state property, including 11 projects in our District 11, including Park Space in Barrio Logan, Gateway Monuments in San Isidro and Escondido, crosswalk improvements and decorative elements in Ramona, artwork in City Heights, and landscaping in Vista. These projects, beginning construction early next year, are designed to increase a sense of community pride and caring. Regarding engagement, we've reached business sponsors and community groups with our Adopt a Highway program, offering a monthly stipend up to $250, which has helped us establish over 120 new highway adoptions. We've also held over 30 free dumpster disposal days, providing people with an opportunity to correctly dispose of large items and prevent illegal dumping. This led to an overall improvement in our level of service scores, a statewide measurement of roadside cleanliness, from the 50th percentile in summer of 2021 to now at the 90th percentile in summer 2022. During this time, we've collected over 1 million cubic yards of debris from the transportation system statewide. And just in our region, we've collected enough debris to cover the San Diego Zoo and Disneyland proper. This means that there's still much work to be done on litter prevention and education. We've started schools education visits and community events, but we'll also need your help. So coming up in March, we ask that your help in organizing cleanups in your community for the first annual Clean California Community Day, a day of action to beautify our neighborhoods. Our goal is to support hundreds of cleanups across the state and pair them with engagement events to educate and establish pride and caring for where we live. Please reach out to us to find out any more ways that we can partner through events, Adopt a Highway, and other programs to ensure San Diego is a region free of pollution and California stays clean for years to come. So thank you.
Well, thank you very much. All right, so we're skipping item 14, and we have our consent calendar first. So
Chair, I'm so sorry. We do have one public comment on that last item as well.
Okay, let's reduce public comment to 1.5 minutes. Can we do that, or is that possible technically?
Yes. We can do it on a phone.
Okay. Okay. We'll do 2 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Blair Beekman, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Thank you for taking my public comment at this time. 2 minutes is appropriate for me. Thank you. For this item. Thank you in watching people, outgoing people, leave the process of SANDAG. These are some of my first meetings. Thank you for the words about how much the trolley has meant to, being a student at UC and what it just means in terms of transportation services for the area. And yeah, I was very in moving down here, I'm very interested in how living close to the international border can be of help to talk about accountability practices. The first meeting I was here, you guys talked about how the trolley could go into Tijuana itself. That was so amazingly optimistic and hopeful. I'm wondering if that's part of the reason why, federal persons like Buttigieg and the president, I think you said, are both here in San Diego. I think they want to see such positive, amazing things. And I talk about that when I in the Bay Area, when I visit Bay Area meetings at this time as well, public meetings. With 43 seconds, I understand you're having some real issues in Sandag internally right now. I don't understand what they are. I'm very sorry that it's happening to you. I'm learning my darndest to learn how to build bridges towards issues in life and communities and neighborhoods and practices. I'm new to the process, so thank you for your patience with myself. I hope whatever is going wrong internally right now, if I can offer that, there is a new era beginning of how to address issues of reimagine and racial equity that I hope can be taken honestly and openly with a good heart of what we really could be building for our future. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes the comments, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So now we are on to consent.
So move items.
It's
5 through 14?
or 13.
5 through 13 on the consent calendar.
I'll go ahead and second. So let's vote. Do we have public comment on consent?
Thank you, Chair. We do have two public commenters who are in the room with us today. We'll start with Lisa Cuestas and then go to John Seymour. Both Lisa and John will be commenting on item number 9.
Hi, good morning, board members. Thank you for allowing us to speak. My name is Lisa Cuestas, President and CEO of Casa Familiar. I am very much in support of item number 9 and would like to uplift all the positive things that was said about staff and Sandag being able to look at housing. We would like to encourage Sandag and staff to work with as many organizations as possible, especially those that can connect with community and looking to add more affordable housing. With me is my co-developer, Ginger Hinsky. She's got a ton of experience in development and affordable housing. We have created at Casa Familiar a community land trust, and together we are moving in the direction of building 100 affordable housing units starting as rental and shifting to a home ownership opportunity. It meets all of the goals in affordability, economic resiliency, and transportation goals that this region hopes to see. We would like Sandag's help in applying jointly with REAP 2.0 HIT funds, which is very similar, has similar guidelines and templates, and it is something that we would have to apply for jointly to the state. The bucket is $30 million. The deadline is December 31st. And I think this is a huge opportunity for myself and other developers like National Core. You'll hear from my colleague, John. And we support as much support Sandag could give to as many entities that are willing to do the heavy lifting. We can do the heavy lifting so that it's a success, and Sandag and all of us can work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker will be John Seymour, and after John, we do have one virtual public comment, and I'll go to Tanya Azevedo.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Seymour from the nonprofit National Community Renaissance, and we're here supporting item number 9. Congratulations to Sandag staff and the board. That is a huge takedown of some $43 million back to the homeland down in San Diego. The next step, we believe, is the guidelines. What Lisa from CASA has described as the final and third pot of REAP. It's $30 million. It's reserved for high impact and transformative projects, supporting VMT reducing elements, accelerating income developments, affordable housing, funding, planning and implementation, et cetera. So that REAP HIT program is available to MPOs only. Developers cannot apply for that, unfortunately. And it's on a competitive basis. It's for novel, unique, innovative regional projects that are scalable, that will further REAP's goals and objectives. Particularly, we've been working on a project in City of San Diego located on the Palm Trolley Station site in South County. It's called Palm City Village. It received MTS's unanimous support. It has an executed development agreement. It's by right. It's CEQA exempt. We have a ground lease in place approved by Housing and Community Development Department and an executed PLA. Most recently, on that project, it's nearly 500 apartment homes, 200 middle income, and about 300 affordable, with a large-scale childcare facility for 50 kids, neighborhood serving retail. And it's on the Blue Line, which would connect from San Ysidro to La Jolla and UTC. The most recent award that we received was the EPIC grant, $1 million from the California Energy Commission. That's the first part of this puzzle. I put a press release handing it around for your information. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I'll next go to Tanya Acevedo. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, my name is Tanya Acevedo. My comment is for item 16 regarding accessible taxis.
Tanya, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. If you'd like to speak on item 16, if you could please wait until that item comes up and we'll call on you at that time. Thank you. And Chair, that concludes the public commenters on this item.
Okay, so thank you to the public commenters. We have a motion for consent and a second.
I have a comment.
Oh, I'm sorry. And actually, I'm so sorry. I forgot. Okay, so we'll go to Councilmember Campillo first.
Thank you, Chair. And just a quick comment on item number 9. This is truly a very big opportunity for the region to utilize substantial state funding and resources to greatly increase our supply of affordable and quality housing. We want to make sure we get this right. And from the City of San Diego's perspective, I would simply ask that staff work with agencies of longstanding expertise, particularly the San Diego Housing Commission, strategize how to utilize these dollars to meet the goals that we're looking for. Agencies like the Housing Commission, which have demonstrated expertise in this area, should be leveraged to maximize this funding so that we can have more affordable development. And I would like to ask staff to look into this and come back to the board at a future date with an update on this. I also understand that the HIT portion of REAP 2.0's funding is due December 31st. I know this is not what we're discussing today, but I think it's important to note, and I would support local efforts of development agencies like Casa Familiar and National Core and other agencies as well, or other development agencies as well, to be included in those conversations. And I'd like our agency to support them in their efforts for applying for this funding as well. And that is my request of staff. So thank you very much, and I'll be supporting the consent agenda.
Thank you, Councilmember. Mayor Huebner.
Yeah, thank you. And I'd like to second what Councilmember Campillo said. My understanding is that there's a little bit of red tape that some of these organizations are experiencing. And it would be helpful to have our Sandag staff work with them. I know I was very pleased to serve on the Regional Equitable Housing Subcommittee, as was discussed earlier. And it was very clear during our work that each of our cities have various differing needs, but it pretty much comes down to money for many of us. And while the City of San Diego is large, and many of those organizations mentioned serve the City of San Diego, others, like we have worked with Ginger Hitzke on a project, and we lost the project because we didn't get that last bit of money. And it's, you know, we went through hell to get that project. And it would be really great to be able to find the money for a variety of worthy and shovel-ready projects. And if Sandag staff can help in any way with these funds, that would be greatly appreciated.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Any other board members? Yes, Councilmember LaCava.
Thank you, Chair. And in the interest of time, I will just echo the comments of my colleague, Councilmember Campillo, requesting that staff work with the San Diego Housing Commission. They have a long track record of interfacing between grants and affordable housing developers. And I think that would be the most productive way to use these funds, make sure they get distributed in the right way, in the most effective way. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Does San Diego Housing, does it service the whole county or just the City of San Diego? Is it the whole county? The full county?
I believe they actually just work in the city of San Diego, but
Is
if
there a
there's,
comparable
if there's
agency?
reasonable.
Yeah, is there a comparable agency that we can also direct that to?
There are.
Yeah.
This is probably not the place, but yes, there are.
Wonderful, thanks.
Okay, other board members who want to speak? Vice Chair?
Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of echo this sentiment of finding that balance. We know that City of San Diego, definitely has that, the position and the numbers, but it really would be missing the mark if the other organizations and communities that are under the $100,000, and for some, the under 30,000 number, to not have those resources, and just really balancing that for the future, because many of us are reaching our RHNA numbers, in particular National City. I mean, we have 5,748 units that we are already looking to build. And at the end of the day, we need and should be at the same level of competitiveness as the City of San Diego. Because we're going to get there and we need those resources, as every entity does, but finding that balance from the bigger entities and the smaller communities, I think, is really important as we look to those funding sources. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, let's go ahead and vote. Okay.
You get that item passes unanimously with those members present.
Okay, thank you. So we're going to take things a little bit out of order to make sure that we get to the things that need votes. So we'll put item 14 at the end, and we'll go to item 16, and we don't need a staff presentation on this. We're going, unless any board member wants a staff presentation, but we do have a public comment on this item. This is access for all Cycle 1 call for projects. So let's go ahead to the public speaker. And if anyone has questions, they can ask you.
Thank you. We do have one person in public, or I'm sorry, in the room who would like to speak. Arun Prem, if you'd like to go ahead and step up to the podium. Still 2 minutes. Chair, would you like 2 minutes for this?
Yes, please. All public comments should be 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. And then after Arun Prem, I will go to the virtual public comments and start with Blair Beekman.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Arun Prem, Executive Director of FACT. Many of you know FACT as the agency that provides affordable, seamless, and curb-to-curb transportation across the county, all of San Diego, for people with disabilities and seniors. And some of you, we serve all 18 cities, unincorporated areas, rural areas, and we provided in this area, City of San Diego, 17,686 rides last year. Some of you may also know SANDAG designated FACT as the CTSA under state law. That's the Consolidated Transportation Services Agency. And in that designation, our role is to coordinate transportation services, all of those specialized transportation services that operate in this area. So by definition, that precludes us from competing against other services. Our job and our mission is to supplement and coordinate with other service providers in this region. We fill gaps that are between other services in this region. We see that as our main purpose. And we do that by utilizing all the resources that the taxi and the paratransit industry has in this region, because FACT does not employ drivers and we do not operate vehicles. We use the local businesses and industry as our mode for providing our transportation services. And just like SANDAG, FACT has been advocating with the CPUC for the last 4 years or longer for these funds, the AFA funds, to be given to SANDAG. We appreciate SANDAG's persistent and ultimately successful efforts with CPUC to get these funds for this region. And FACT is honored to be recommended for the AFA funding. The funds will flow through FACT to the local vendors and enhance the economy, enhance the
Arun,
infrastructure.
I'm so sorry to stop you there, but your time has expired and we do need to move on to the rest of the list. If you had other comments you'd like to submit to
Thank you.
me, I will make sure they're distributed for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun.
We'll now go to Blair Beekman, who will be followed by Will Johnson.
Hi, Blair Beekman here. To kind of round out my day and my importance, the work that I'm trying to understand with technology accountability practices for this item. There's a lot of good bicycle projects, complete streets projects, safe street projects. And to also, I think, to bring in, I wanted to make public comment on consent calendar, but my hand was raised, but I was not called upon. But I think I can nicely fit in item 10 about grant funding for Project Safe Neighborhood fiscal funding from U.S. Department of Justice. I think I can fit that into this item as well. The importance of tech, safe neighborhoods, neighborhood safety, it's really important issues that I don't at all dismiss its importance, and it's first and always first in our thinking. But we can't simply just offer a ton of technology for ourselves without wanting to practice its accountable practices as well. With all the complete streets projects and all the technology in place, do you want to practice how that technology put in place can be an open, accessible process to the public? I think it can secretly makes you cringe inside to want to do that with the public. But I think that's an important future that opens up the concepts of sustainability and peace and open democracy and a more positive, harmonious community future that Vision Zero ideas try to go for, and just a positive sustainability that it just creates the concepts of peace instead of war. So that's my work and efforts. I hope we think about that with this item. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker will be Will Johnson, who will be followed by Lily Arani.
Hi there, my name is Will Johnson, and I am the organizer with United Taxi Workers of San Diego. So we applied for this grant with the understanding that this was a new fund for innovative ways to expand on-demand wave access. And we've been talking about expanding wave access in the office for quite some time, and we thought that this was a great way to get our foot in the door. And to provide some background, there's an acute need for wave taxis here in San Diego County. There are only 2 wave taxis serving San Diego right now, and there's none at the airport. And we want to fill this service gap with union drivers. Now, we are also currently developing a taxi hailing app to compete with Uber and Lyft, and the app is currently being reviewed by the CDFA to ensure the accuracy of the GPS and meter. We plan to launch this as soon as we are approved, and we want to serve all of San Diego County with it. And we feel that we are a great match for this grant. So, we also want to pilot our first mile, last mile using wheelchair accessible vehicles that we're hoping to purchase from this grant. So we are a small, scrappy organization, and we have 4 people on staff, and 2 of them are part-time, and we have half a dozen volunteers. And it took a while to get this application just prepared to get done. And so we felt like our low score might have been a result of, just the rushed application. But I later found through talking that seems that the problem wasn't so much our application as it was that we didn't really have any wave vehicles currently. So this is our process, but how can we expand wave access when we as an organization are systematically disqualified because we don't have waves? It's a catch-22 that really needs to be addressed before cycle 2. I had some other things to say, but I'm running out of time. I want to say in closing that we want to make these projects, first mile, last mile happen, but we need to make this application process better for cycle 2. Thank
you
you.
very much, Will. And if you'd like to submit additional comments to me, I'm happy to distribute those on your behalf.
Thank you.
We'll next go to Lily Arani, and Lily will be followed by Louise Hickman. After Louise, we'll have about 3 additional public comments.
Hi, I'm speaking as a friend of several people in wheelchairs and as a professor at UC San Diego's Design Lab. The decision to award funding only to FACT sequesters disabled communities into a separate transportation infrastructure and, as a result, separates them from the wider communities in which they are already part. These stories, a story I want to share with you is real, and I want to project them into the future based on the funding decision being discussed today. So at UC San Diego, a key part of our research and training are invited lectures. We listen to cutting-edge researchers, we discuss questions and problems in the field, and at the end of the visit, students and faculty take the speaker to dinner to build relationships that can be essential for building knowledge and building careers. People make last-minute decisions to join dinner based on the relevance of the research to their own work. The dinner venues around UCSD are easy to access by car, but very slow to access by bus. When Louise Hickman, who you'll hear from next, was studying for her PhD at UCSD as a wheelchair user, I remember that she could not come to many of our speaker dinners because it would take her several hours to reach somewhere the rest of us could reach in 20 minutes. With the funding decision on the table today, our wheelchair using community would still not be able to book last-minute rides to be able to be part of these job formation networks, these community networks, or making the same game time decision about what to do with their lives that everybody else gets to. The equity criteria for this grant should include universal design, a way of designing that calls for basic infrastructures to be made accessible to many kinds of bodies. Equity here means having the same last-minute options as everybody else, having wheelchair users and non-users able to share the same ride, and having wheelchair users able to make the same kind of decisions about their time, jobs, and lives without having to show a lot of documentation. That definition of equity is not in the Access for All evaluation criteria. Instead, this funding will continue to divide us by channeling wheelchair users and non-users into different transit infrastructures. Finally, I'm a board member of UTWSD, and I'm concerned about whether FACT's subcontracting model provides drivers with good jobs and a living wage.
Thank you, Lily. Next, we'll go to Louise Hickman, who will be followed by Tanya Acevedo.
Hello, my name is Louise Hickman. As Lily had just referenced me in the previous comment, I did my PhD at UC San Diego and now a researcher at the University of Cambridge in the United Kingdom. I'm here today to offer my account of why I'm anxious about FACTS weighing in or receiving this funding. In the sense that there's no direct relationship with drivers, and this is imperative when thinking about accessibility, rather than a brokerage firm that are brokerage organizations that facilitate access. I would like to advocate a direct relationship with drivers themselves. To kind of give you a sense of some of the issues that came up for me while I was living in San Diego. I was at a conference in Los Angeles. Amtrak train got delayed. I was on a 5-something train. The train was delayed and then was coming in after midnight. There was no options for me to book a wheelchair accessible vehicle due to the fact that quite often these services are operating within its business hours. They don't operate on an on-demand basis that the UTWSD is offering. And so I really stress that this grant needs to be reevaluated, and disabled people need to be centered within this decision process. I hear on this board, there's a lot of talk about involving the community. Now it's time to involve the disabled community directly into the decision made about transportation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final 2 speakers will be Tanya Acevedo, followed by Clear Blue Jay.
Hello, my name is Tanya Acevedo. I'm a San Diego resident as well as a wheelchair user, and I would like to add what the previous 2 speakers are talking about. Because of my problems with transportation, I've missed out on jobs. I've got fired from a job for not having adequate transportation. I've missed important tests at university and important doctor appointments, as well as problems with traditional taxis and non-traditional taxis in regards to rude drivers or people that are not sensitive to my needs. That's all I wanted to say. I think it's very important that our stories are listened to so that initiatives like these accessible taxis like FACT are implemented here in San Diego, because as of now, public transportation and taxis are not accessible here in San Diego, and we really need a service like this to be able to access, to really have access in the community. We really do not have it at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. And our final speaker will be Clear Blue Jay. You can go ahead when you're ready.
Hi, my name is Clear Blue Jay, and I'm an organizer with the Democratic Socialists of America, San Diego. I'm a 40-year-old with cerebral palsy. I have struggled with isolation in the 6 years that I lived in the San Diego area. The lack of waves is one of the primary causes of this isolation. For example, it can take me 3 hours one way to visit a friend in North County. I've also been yelled at for not being on time to a job interview because of poor public transportation between North County and San Diego, things of that nature. I believe that waves with unionized labor would do a lot to solve a lot of my problems and the problems that other speakers have already mentioned. So I really want to give, hopefully that SANDAG will reconsider United Taxi workers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the public comments on this item.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Huebner? Oh, okay, that was not, okay. Let's see, I don't see, okay. The other council member from Solana Beach. Go ahead, Council Member Edson.
Thank you. I sit here, of course, for North County Transit District. The Access for All grant funding will provide exactly that. It's very exciting. For a number of years, I've sat on the board of FACT representing SANDAG. I fully support staff's recommendation of top scoring applicant FACT to provide on-demand wheelchair access service for individuals with disabilities throughout our region. As the CTSA for our region since 2006, FACT's mission has been to support and coordinate specialized transportation service by filling gaps in existing services. The question is always funding, and this funding will provide the ability for on-demand versus limited service. So that's really important factor. As the CTSA for our region since 2006, as I mentioned, FACT's operating model, relies on local taxi and paratransit vendors to provide rides. This model is actually a win-win for our region. It ensures that funding from AFA and similar grants is passed through to our local taxi and paratransit industry and supports the growth and development of these local businesses, which of course benefits all service providers in our region.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So move, Chair.
Okay, thank you. So we're item 16, we have a motion and I will second it. So let's go ahead and vote.
That item does pass unanimously with those members present.
Okay, thank you. Now we are skipping to item 18. This is going to be handled initially by Councilmember Dave Zito, the chair of the Audit Committee. So I will hand it to you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for letting me take a few minutes to make a few comments. I wanted to do a brief introduction on this latest report, as we are all still learning what it means to have an audit committee, an audit function in this organization, and how to appropriately work with this new capability. As my term as chair is ending soon, this is also a good opportunity to share a few thoughts. First, I think I'd like to thank Chair Blakespear for her nomination and showing trust and faith in my ability to fill this role, and to the board for voting to appoint me. It's definitely been a learning experience. Next, on behalf of the Audit Committee, I'd like to thank the IPA staff and management for working diligently through these audits. It's an arduous process, but done right, it can help the organization become stronger and more effective, and the team is working hard toward this. With respect to the contracts audit, being here gives me an opportunity to share some thoughts of the members of the audit committee itself on this report for those who haven't had the opportunity to watch the meeting. First, I just, relative to this report, I think it's worth quoting a couple of comments made by the public members of the audit committee. First, so one comment was, it shouldn't be a surprise that these types of issues are found in an agency that has never been audited before or had an internal audit function. That's my paraphrase. We should be celebrating the fact that we are uncovering these deficiencies and have people committed to making the necessary changes. A comment from another public member. With SANDAG and the complexity it has, you can expect that this is going to be huge relative to doing a contracts audit. Another way of saying this, with the exception of the city of San Diego and perhaps the county and port authority who have internal audit functions, if we tasked Mary and her team to audit organizations, our organizations outside of those, it would likely result in a document that looks just as scary, because we don't have internal audit functions. And yes, on the surface, this report looks scary. It's designed to. The intent of the audit report is to find shortcomings and then identify all the risks that we are then exposed to. The intent is to cause action to address these issues and gaps. The audit report doesn't currently identify the causes of the anomalies found. Rather, it simply identifies the risks of possible bad reasons. However, we should acknowledge that not all reasons are possibly malicious, such as perhaps simply trying to keep a project on time, on budget, when a worldwide health crisis is ongoing. This still doesn't make any issues found right or the way that we should be running the organization, but it can put it into a different light. I'd expect those outside of this organization to point this out and discuss all of the possible negatives, as that is how our system works. However, at the audit committee meeting, there were also a number of comments about how the way these reports are being handled by some that are part of the organization, that is, at least in my mind, creating greater risk to SANDAG than anything being identified in these reports. As an example, by focusing only on the negatives and assuming the worst with regular ongoing attacks, we create risks such as destruction of morale, loss of key talent, and lack of ability to recruit new key talent. To understand what this means, you don't have to look further than observing what is happening to Twitter. Most of the issues being found in our audit reports can be addressed in 6 to 18 months. However, this type of damage takes years, if not decades, to recover from. I don't know about you, but I don't want to be known as the Twitter of MPOs. So when listening to this report and hearing the findings, I hope it can be done with the mindset of assuming the best and with the realization that done right, we can make this organization stronger, and the comments made reflect that. It is the job of the IPA and the IPA staff to worry about what can go wrong and present that to us. They do a really good job of it. They work really hard. It is our job to then figure out and make sure that we're doing the best that we can to close these gaps and assigning staff to do that. The chair earlier made a comment about a divided board, and I fully admit these audits are just like a shiny object that can be looked at and said, hey, this is a way that, maybe we can realize some of our objectives. I just think it's worth pointing out that when we do that, we are damaging the agency and thus likely damaging the region. And so I would just ask, as this report's reviewed, as the future reports are reviewed, that we also do it in the context of it's not all bad, that we are out there actually saying there are reasons that these things happen, and we are there committed to fixing these issues and making this a better organization and better agency, because that's what our region needs. And again, referring back to Chair Blakespear's earlier comments, it doesn't do any of us good if this becomes a very ineffective agency for 5 to 10 years as we try to recover from things, because it's just not going to help our region recruit the talent and the money and the infrastructure it needs. So listen to the report, hear the findings, and realize that staff is working hard towards fixing the issues that we've identified. And with that, I'd like to turn it over to our excellent staff. Thank you.
I think Mary's going to be on.
Yes, good morning. Hello, everybody. Good morning. This is Mary Koch-Mushrub. Sorry I can't be there. I'm celebrating in Florida with my son, who is officially a commercial pilot. So I'm here celebrating with him, but did feel it was important to try to make most of this meeting and express a few things. So I appreciate Chair Zito's perspective from the audit committee, and I wanted to also share and introduce this audit and share the perspective of the IPA and the auditor who actually signs this report. So before I have the auditors present the findings to part one, I feel it's necessary to clarify a few matters regarding part one of the audit report and the results. Auditors' reports are based on facts and evidence. However, no matter how clearly stated the report is, there will always be attempts to misinterpret findings, and from that make statements or state findings that have not been identified in the report. Interpretation of audit findings are not controlled by the auditors. Auditors' responsibilities are to ensure that findings are based on facts and supported with appropriate and sufficient evidence, while assuring adherence to professional auditing standards, and in this case, GAGAS. And part one of this audit has done just that. Further, auditors have the responsibility to ensure all matters identified in the audit are reported, and this includes matters that may involve other parties, such as contractors who are fully aware and still choose to participate in projects that are funded by the public dollar. That means full accountability and transparency for anyone that is part of the audit objective. Auditors are aware that as a result of their findings, threats of lawsuits by third parties or even management has potential, simply for reporting facts that are fully supported with sufficient evidence that may not be favorable. Though this behavior should be unacceptable, it happens. However, it does not prevent skilled auditors from being diligent in the audit process and in issuing a factual and supported report. With that said, part one was not about third parties. In this case, specifically contractors or their actions were not part of this first part of the report. It was about internal, inward looking. It was about the lack of controls, policies, inconsistencies in practices and procedures, lacking or no training, generalized scoping, or poor planning. The tables that were provided simply show the top 10 vendors whose total contracts have both higher percentages or dollar amounts that are material compared to the total baseline increases between the initial contracted amounts and what the current amount is. Was used, and it was simply used to support the results issued as noted above, the weaknesses. It was used to show the impact or the effects in part one and has nothing to do with the actions taken by any contractors. Again, the use of this table was to show the large variations and thus the impact or effect on the weaknesses found. The top 10 listed in the table were based on the highest percentages in dollar materiality change compared to the overall baseline. Had we chose to select the top 20, there would have been a full and complete list of 20 that shows the same impact. However, nowhere in part one does it state that these 10 contractors were found to have done anything wrong. In fact, it clearly states that part one had no fraud or intentional wrongdoing while performing our test. We also did not identify as a result of contractor A, B, or C that there were findings resulting from it. At the completion of part one, auditors had not performed substantive testing specifically around contractors because the focus was inward and not outward on third parties or contractors. With that, while performing tests on part two, auditors will be looking outward at the contractors to determine the impact or the effect as a result of part one. Auditors will look at the contractors' agreements to ensure the processes around bidding, amendments, invoice payments, contract scope was adhered to by both SANDAG and the contractor. If there is evidence of any intentional or unintentional wrongdoings, unallowable cost, unsupported or work outside the scope of the agreement, etc., It will be reported in Part 2's audit report as required by governing codes and GAGAS. Again, transparency and accountability comes with anyone that chooses to contract with a public agency. If we find there was no wrongdoing on the side of the contractors or third parties, that too will be noted. And if we find that there were material matters that rise to the level of potential fraud, waste, or misuse, these matters will not be reported in detail in the report. Rather, they will be referred to in a higher authority of government. I've been auditing for 26 years in government. If it's factual and supported within the scope of the audit and follows GAGAS, a threat from management or an outside party has never prevented me from fulfilling my responsibilities and being diligent, and it won't as long as I'm at SANDAG. The auditors are often and sadly placed in a lose-lose situation. If there are findings and it does not look good on the agency, it's the auditor's fault. If there are no findings and something happens, it's the auditor's fault. It's not an easy job, but you know what? It's an honorable one. And I appreciate and have so much respect for my OPA auditors. In closing, to ensure that there is understanding and clarity, the audit was a full-blown performance audit that was performed under the GAGAS standards, which is required under AB 805. There are basically two types of audits, financial and performance. This, again, is a performance audit that focuses on the effectiveness, efficiency, compliance, and system controls, and the results, impacts, or effects of weaknesses identified. I know that we auditors often use the term review and audit interchangeably. So at the request of Chair Zito, I did want to clarify this and let you know that it is in fact a full-blown performance audit. With this, I will hand it over to Lloyd, who will present with the rest of auditors. But please, first I need you to understand I have already directed staff not to answer any questions regarding Part 2, as this audit is still in process and substantive testing is ongoing. With that, I may not make it through the entire presentation, but I did want to also add that it is important to understand management has been working very proactively with OPA and implementing steps and having meetings and even taking an employee from management that is experienced and has a great deal of quality control review experience around contracts and put them under OPA, an independent body that will do continuous auditing and quality control review around contracts. This is just some of the proactive steps that management, Ray and Andre, have been working diligently with OPA to do. And I think that says a lot. So with that, I will hand it over to Lloyd, Mike, and Crystal to present the findings.
Thank you, Mary. Good morning, Chair and members of the board. The scope and objective of the audit is a review of the SANDAG's contract and procurement for the period beginning July 1st, 2017 to June 30, 2021. This includes open contracts within the audit period, even if the audit, even if the contract was initiated prior to the audit, or it extended beyond the audit period. We will review to ensure that we capture the full picture of each randomly selected sampled contract and contractor. The audit is broken up into two parts. The first part of the review is a review of SANDAG's system of controls and operation to ensure effective and efficient controls are being followed. In addition, we reviewed SANDAG's procedures and policies to ensure they are consistent with federal, state, and other applicable governing laws, rules, and regulations. Part 2 of this audit is a review of contractors and supporting documents and the effect due to the findings identified in Part 1. We are currently performing substantive testing and we hope to complete the audit by January. However, currently we have identified over 10,000 invoices that are associated with the open contracts. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mike and Crystal to present the detailed findings of the report.
Thank you, Lloyd. So there were 7 findings in this report, and in this presentation, we will map out what we observed, the risks associated with those observations, and our recommendations for them. So the first finding was inadequate administrative standard operating procedures, SOPs, for contract analysts and project managers. We found that contract analysts and project managers do not have standard operating procedures. The following were cited as SOPs: the SANDAG procurement manual, various contract document templates, forms on the shared SANDAG website and SharePoint, board policies, and project plans. The best way I could describe it is, for example, the SANDAG procurement manual, it will explain what needs to be done, but not necessarily how to do those things. The risks that this observation poses is staff's duties are not clear or properly segregated. There's overlap in assignment of duties and responsibilities. Contract analysts complete project manager tasks. Tasks can be overlooked, missed, or inconsistently completed. There could be potential project delays and difficulty and inconsistency in training new staff. We are recommending that staff create formalized standard operating procedures with clear step-by-step instructions for assigned tasks for each contract analyst and project managers. Provide formal and regular training to contract analysts and project managers on assigned roles, responsibilities, and procedures. Update the procurement manual to clearly identify and segregate roles and responsibilities for contract analysts and project managers. Our second finding was that there was insufficient training of contract analysts and project managers and insufficient requirements to qualify as a project manager. We've observed that most contract analyst training is internal, minimal, informal, and inconsistent. Only some project managers had formal training. Some of these inconsistencies include 4 of the 13 analysts did not have formal training or certifications, and only some received training from outside sources. Analysts were not encouraged to join professional associations or seek external training. Cases of interns training other interns. Analysts providing training in addition to daily workload. Analysts completing project managers' tasks as stated before. And analysts must sometimes remind project managers of conflict of interest restrictions. We also found that there are 192 active project managers in the contract management system and 238 employees with the ability to be assigned as a project manager. The risk resulting from this include inconsistencies in following policies and procedures, missing steps in the procurement process, loss of federal funding due to non-compliance of laws, rules, and regulation, delays in processing procurement requests, improper segregation of duties, as stated before, analysts completing project manager tasks, vendors potentially taking advantage of staff's lack of knowledge of processes and procedures, assigning unqualified staff as project managers, and excessive assignment of project managers. We are recommending that staff create standard operating procedures for contract analysts and project manager specific tasks, more clearly segregate the duties of contract analysts and project managers, provide consistent training for contract analysts by internal subject matter experts and/or management, provide annual and/or continuous training on the procurement manual and standard operating procedures for both contract analysts and project managers, identify and require qualifications to be met and specialized training to be completed by an employee prior to the assignment of a project manager role, and encourage external professional association training specific to procurement, such as CAPO and NIGP, and project management. Our third finding was itemized breakdown of work performed not required for invoice payment. We observed that the breakdown of work performed is not required to process invoices. Required documentation submitted by vendors for payment is inconsistent. Only some project managers require detailed support for work performed, and detailed summaries are only provided when explicitly requested. The risks this poses is paying for incomplete or subpar work, paying for unauthorized services, overpayment or duplicate payments, and potential federal funding loss. We are recommending that staff require detailed / itemized invoices and progress reports or detailed summary of work performed for a payment to be processed. Update the request for payment form to explicitly require itemized invoices to be attached. Create formal standard operating procedures and training for invoice payment to include instructions and methods for verifying invoiced work is included in the contract or task order. And lastly, update contract templates to require detailed or itemized invoices as well as progress reports or detailed summaries of work performed to be included with those invoices. For finding 4, I'm going to hand it to my colleague, Crystal, to take over.
Thank you. So for finding 4, we identified inadequate contract management system with limited capabilities and usage, as well as inaccurate and missing information. What we observed were for the following. The current CMS is not fully being used as a document management database nor document sorting and filing system. The limited capabilities with the system include not recording, tracking, or reporting a total not to exceed amount per contract or per vendor, not tracking up-to-date encumbrance amounts or amounts paid against a contract or a task order, not tracking a list or number of approved subcontractors on a contract or task order, allowing users to edit and replace contract or documents after contract execution in the system, allowing requests when funds are unavailable in the CMS system, allowing auto-populated fields to be left blank, and currently only one contracts employee was trained to run advanced reports within the CMS system. Additionally, auditors noted that from a list of contracts provided, the records had inaccurate or incomplete contract details. So that includes multiple versions of staff member names, Mike versus Michael, project manager labeled as generic username, something like user 3000, 80 records where project manager field was left blank, 1,052 records where the department field was left blank, 1,056 records where the division field was left blank, and an employee might also be listed as a project manager while not actually acting as the project manager. The risk resulting from this include errors and inconsistencies with reported total amounts per contract and per vendor. Those amounts actually have to be manually calculated. A task order can be executed under a fully expended contract. Limited ability to efficiently conduct any quality control or accurate auditing, unreliability of CMS records and reports due to allowed changes at any time, unreliability of amounts recorded in or reported from CMS due to inaccurate or outdated data, and subconsultants not formally authorized on a contract or task order may work on a project if the project managers or contract analysts cannot easily verify that a subcontractor is listed on a contract. Also delay in report running, delay in locating required documents, inability to identify who a project manager is, unclarity on who to contact with questions regarding the requests or documents submitted, inability to easily identify bid rigging schemes, collusion amongst contractors, collusion between contractors and employees by bid tailoring, bid manipulation, bid splitting, and leaking of bid data, as well as federal funding loss. Our office recommended that staff replace the current CMS system and that the replacement CMS should be able to communicate, integrate with finance, encumbrance, invoice, and payment records to include tracking, searching, and recording invoice payments against contracts, task orders, et cetera. And data stored within should also be user-friendly, easily accessible, and easily reportable. That they also provide staff training and standard operating procedures on using the replacement CMS and submitting all types of requests. Ensure staff can efficiently and easily query list of contractors and subcontractors within the replacement CMS. Ensure all contracts and related records are easily stored in one accessible location. Ensure the replacement CMS is updated with correct and complete information and data to correct the inaccuracies and blanks from the records. require that the listed project manager in the system be the actual project manager, and specify required fields in the replacement CMS are actually required and mandatory fields to be completed. Provide CMS access based on staff's specific job duties, ensure the replacement CMS provides an efficient audit trail, ensure that more than one employee, but preferably 3 or more, have in-depth knowledge, training, and skills in the replacement CMS system and can provide reports to the auditors. And if recommendation 1 is not chosen to be accepted, then the auditors recommend that staff complete recommendations 2 through 10 and apply it to the current CMS system. For finding 5, we identified a modification of details in records of negotiation. A project manager provided leading information to a vendor when requesting a cost proposal. Contract staff then deleted the communication in the record of negotiation and summarized it simply as a request for a cost proposal. So this procurement request should not have been authorized. It should be noted also that in our in our review of the records, we only found one example of this, and it does not appear to be a widespread practice. So risks resulting from this include elimination of Sandag's negotiation power to receive the best possible price. It violates the integrity and transparency of procurement process. There is a potential risk of employee and contractor collusion. So we've recommended that staff create a formal standard operating procedure and provide training on completing a record of negotiation to both project managers and contract staff. Provide negotiation training and guidelines to project managers and contract analysts to include reasons, intent of negotiations, best practices, and risks of not negotiating and or not following best practices. For finding 6, we've identified inadequate documentation for sole source transactions. What we observed was from a sample of 38 sole source transactions reviewed, 2 transactions were missing justification forms. There was inconsistent labeling and filing of the justification forms. Justification forms were found in 4 different locations. 13 forms with amounts that did not match the record amount, 5 forms missing at least 1 signature, and CMS did not accurately record all sole sources. And the method of procurement selection form is not always submitted with a sole source transaction as specified to be required. The risks resulting from this include noncompliance with funding regulations, disqualification from future funding opportunities, and the disorganization of record keeping can cause difficulty in locating the files, such as the justification form, delays in processing sole source requests and other contract documents, limits Sandag's ability to easily confirm processes were followed. Our recommendations include providing training to staff on sole source laws, rules, regulations, and processes, create formal standard operating procedures on sole source processes, update the current sole source justification template to include procurement requests, details such as contract, task order, amendment number, as well as the project manager name, vendor name, et cetera. Reorganize the contract and sole source records in one centralized location, update CMS to have accurate information, and then ensure that required documents are saved as separate files and labeled accordingly, such as saving a sole source justification form as such. Finding 7, for finding 7, we identified material weaknesses with the identification of on-call and sole source contracts and amendments. We observed that there were material weaknesses within the ability to identify when an increase to a contract is due to competed task orders, sole sources, amendments, et cetera. From a CMS report 1 that we received on July 28th, 2022, we identified no clear identification of amendments tied to on-call contracts, nor accurate identification of sole source procurements. Records were mislabeled under incorrect base contracts. Record titles did not specify which contract or task order they were related to. 1,627 total contracts including 308 on-call contracts were found. 447 contracts with blank original amounts were found, including 271 on-call contracts. And approximately 88% of all on-call contracts have blank original amounts. For further explanation on our methodology, Mike is going to explain.
Thank you, Crystal. All right, so we did 3 separate analyses, and each of them are going to have, and each of those analyses are going to have 2 tables. So the first one is only including contracts that had no blank original amounts and were not on-call contracts. So this includes all contracts that were active during the audit period, including ones that were initiated prior to the start of it, or ones that are still going on right now. As long as they were open and active during the audit period, they were included. We only included, for percentage increases, we only included vendors whose original amounts totaled were more than $1 million, just so we would not be skewed by small amounts. We didn't want to have a small amount be raised by a relatively smaller amount, but make it show that the large percentage increase, when if you're talking 10,000 to 100,000, that would be a lot percentage-wise, but not in dollar amounts. We excluded task orders and amendments and other offsets to avoid what's called double counting. The way it's set up, if a base contract was agreed to 100,000 and then there was an amendment for, let's say, 10,000, the current amount of that contract would read 110,000, and then you'd have an amendment underneath that totaled 10,000. If you didn't take away that amendment when you're doing the calculation, you would be double counting that amendment, because rather than the current amount being 110,000 like it should be, it would count as 120,000, hence the term double counting. And current amount represents the current maximum amount that could be paid, not actual amounts that have been paid. So table 1.1 will show contractors with the 10 highest percentage changes, and table 1.2 will show the contractors with the 10 highest dollar differences. Please note that the total percentage increase for all non-on-call and non-blank original amount contracts is 5%. So as you see here, the top 3 vendors saw an increase of 459%, 293%, and 108% respectively. You also might notice that these vendors are anonymized. The reason is we needed to keep them anonymized because we don't want to make any potential defamatory claims, as this might be issues on our end, not on the contractor's end. This is also part 1 of an ongoing audit, and we do not want to compromise future investigations as well. 1.2, so the top 3 in dollar amounts of non-on-call and contracts with the blank original amounts saw an increase of 20.8 million, 10.4 million, and 8.3 million respectively. So the second analysis was only looking at on-call contracts. The methodology was the same as before. For percentage increase, we were only looking for original amounts larger than 1 million. We excluded contracts with blank original amounts, and the table 2.1 will show the contracts with the 10 highest percentage change. 2.2 will show the contracts with the 10 highest dollar increases. So for on-call contracts, the total percentage increase was 46%. For the top 3 for on-call contracts, we saw an increase of 698%, 127%, and 99% respectively for the increase from original to current amount. In terms of dollar amounts, we saw an increase of 63.98 million, 31.53 million, and 27.5 million for the top 3 vendors. Our last analysis was combining both of those, looking at both non-on-call and on-call contracts. We once again excluded contracts with blank original amounts, and the same methodology as follows. Table 3.1 will show the 10 highest percentage increases, and table 3.2 will show the 10 highest dollar increases. For the combined of non-on-call and on-call contracts, the total percentage increase was 19%. So for the top 3 here, we see once again 698%, 459% increase, and 293% increase for the top 3 respectively. In terms of dollar amounts, Once again, we got 63.98 million, 31.5 million, and 29.8 million. So the significance of these results, or if you're able to see it in the report, 5 contractors appear in both the 10 largest percentage increase for on-call and combined tables. And 8 contractors appear in the top 10 largest dollar increases for both on-call and total combined tables. This indicates that there appears to be a disproportionate preference to certain vendors based on the totality of contract amounts. And the results of this finding exhibit how much a contract, once again, the results of this finding exhibit how much a contractor has the ability to be reimbursed, not how much they have been paid yet. In part 2 of this audit will allow auditors to determine if on-call contractors have been amended, sole source, and if all requirements were followed. The risk that these observations pose is that there's potential favoritism and repeat award to the same vendors, authorizing unjustified sole sources and overuse of sole sources, overpaying for contracted work and costs exceeding estimated budgets, DBE goals not being met, limited or lack of full and open competition, potential lack of public trust, and not being able to easily identify bid rigging schemes, collusion amongst contractors, collusion between contractors and employees, bid manipulation, bid splitting, and leaking of bid data. We are recommending that staff review the on-call process to ensure fairness and equity throughout, provide procurement planning training with the steps and timeline needed to prepare projects, ensure sufficient planning efforts are made to avoid sole sources and amendments when possible, review the sole source policies to ensure a clear understanding of allowed requests, limitations, and approval requirements, create sole source standard operating procedures for all levels of the approval process, provide sole source training with examples of justified and allowable requests and unjustified examples due to poor planning, ensure on-call procurements are being sufficiently advertised to reach a variety of qualified contractors, including public platform outreach, the attendance of outreach events to attract new and disadvantaged contractors and subcontractors. And lastly, to revise the procurement manual to avoid conflicting language, particularly with the A&E contract management and sole sources. So I believe we're going to have a management response, right?
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to provide the management response to the recent contracts audit. And to start out with, I'd like to thank Mary and her team for conducting the audit and preparing the recommendations. As you can see from the material that they provided, this is really a monumental task to put all this information together. And it's something that we've been waiting for months to get the results. What I really appreciate is the fact that they put together the material into these categories or buckets that we can really address. It's not that we were oblivious to all of these things happening, but it's really hard to kind of categorize them. And really one of the biggest benefits is that now we can take a look at the type of things that need to be done, and we can start to address those as management. You know, our contracts and procurement program is one of the agency's most complex functions, and it touches about everything we do, everything from ordering office supplies and computer equipment to building billions of dollars worth of infrastructure. And so as you can imagine, fixing this is going to take us a while, but we are committed absolutely to doing this. Before I continue, I just wanted to reiterate what Mary said at the beginning of this, that the auditors did not find or identify any type of fraud or intentional wrongdoing over the areas that they reviewed. And we agree with that particular finding also. So the audit validates our assessment that changes are needed, and Hassan has known this for a long time, and that's one of the reasons that he reorganized the way that he did, so that we really focused more on internal operations. We accept all of the findings, and we are committed to taking action. There's a lot of things that we know that we can improve on, and we're going to do that over time. all of the things that you heard the auditors talk about really fall into 4 types of categories. The first one is that we have inadequate policies and lack of standard procedures. And we absolutely agree with that. And that's something that we are working on as an agency to tighten up, not just in the contracts field, but throughout the agency. The second thing is insufficient training for staff. And this too is not just in the contracts department. We're looking at training employees across the agency. The third category is inadequate software systems. And yes, we have a bunch of homegrown software, some of it that's been around for 20 years. We have paper processes also. All of that needs to be brought forward into the 21st century. And we are in the process of implementing an ERP system, a enterprise resource system across our entire agency as we speak. And finally, poor practices with respect to on-call procurement and sole source transactions. And again, we agree with that. And a lot of the things that, the reason that we ended up using sole sources is that our process takes way too long to accomplish. And so people who need to get work done in order to keep projects moving, in some cases we use sole source when we probably shouldn't have done that. So we take ownership of that also. Furthermore, management appreciates the 40 or so recommendations that OIPA gave us, and they were enumerated in this presentation. But in our opinion, those don't go far enough in bringing about the type of change that we envision for our contracts program. And so as we look at the contracts program, what we need to really look at is not just what we have to do to fix the contracting process, but we have to really look at what contracting is within SANDAG and across departments, and how we build infrastructure projects, for instance. And so we need to rethink, and we need to re-envision, and we need to re-implement a contracts program that works for the type of work that we do today. In just a little bit about how large the contracts program is here at SANDAG. We have a 22-person contracts team, and they are working on 1,100 open contracts, active contracts right now as we speak. And there are 300 unique vendors that we're working with. Last year, we processed more than 800 transactions and issued more than $300 million worth of work via contracts. So this is not a small feat to make this happen. And as I said before, we're absolutely committed to doing it. In regards to the findings, finding number 1, inadequate administrative standard operating procedures, SOPs, contract analysts and project managers. We agree. And we will move forward to coming up with standardized processes. That is something that we're actively working on right now. We're bringing in contracts consultants to help us with this also, so that we don't invent it internally and essentially have best of breed type contracts here at SANDAG. Finding number 2, insufficient training of contracts analysts and project managers, insufficient requirements to qualify as project managers. Again, we absolutely agree. We have a process whereby we didn't really have formalized training for project managers. And as you saw, the number of project managers, and it's probably half of the agency could have been a project manager. That is going to be changed. We have contracted with UCSD to perform project management classes, and we have our first 25 people who are attending those classes right now. So we will create a formal project management training. We've created a project management office also, and so we are going to be doing a lot more project management here at SANDAG, and that's going to be implemented over the next fiscal year. Finding number 3, itemized breakdown of work performed not required for invoice payment. Absolutely need to be able to hold the vendors' feet to the fire and make sure that they're delivering what we expect them to deliver. And a lot of the reason that we have insufficient information is because we don't have sufficient training for the project managers. It requires better project management and better standard operating procedures for us to be able to work with our project managers to hold the vendors accountable, and we're working on that also. Finding number 4, inadequate contract management system with limited capabilities and usage and inaccurate and misleading information. We've known here at SANDAG that we needed to replace our financial systems, our HR systems, our contract systems, all of our internal systems. We went out to bid in 2019 for an ERP system, and we are in the process of implementing that right now. It will be done by the end of 2023 or early 2024. So we're about halfway done with that. We started with the finance department, moving into contracts, and then we move into HR. When we're finished with that, everything will be tied together. Everything will be electronic. We will be a paperless agency, and we will be able to do the type of reporting and queries that the audit team continuously asks us that we are have a hard time providing them with the information because we just don't have tools to be able to do that. Finding number 6, inadequate documentation for sole source transactions. We agree that we need to do a better job with the sole source transactions, and having a new ERP system will definitely help that, along with better documentation. And finally, finding number 7, material weaknesses with the identification of on-call and sole source contracts and amendments. We agree that we need to look at the sole source process and how we use it. Although the sole source process is a fundamental way that we do business, I can give you examples of why it needs to be used. It's possible that we do overuse it. We'll be taking a look at that, and we'll be working with OIPA as we move forward. You know, if Hassan was here, he would say that we take full responsibility for everything that's happened, and that we will do everything in our power to make sure that we work with OIPA to overcome all of these issues that were pointed out in the contract audit. We look forward to part 2, and after we receive part 2, we will come up with a formalized plan in terms of how we're going to address all of these issues within the contracts management area. Thank you very much. And I think now the team can take any questions that the board might have.
Okay, I'd like to go to the Mayor Vasquez, because she is the vice chair of this committee, and I know she has to leave. So I'm going to call on her first.
Thank you so very much. And I appreciate the presentation and the thorough deep dive into this process to perform this audit. One thing that's very important is data, facts, truth, and transparency. And I believe that through the audit committee, that is going to help this agency move forward in those key areas. As vice chair of the committee, I know that this kind of audit, it's important, and especially when it comes to contracts and procurement, and to make sure that there are system controls in place, that's a value. And, you know, one thing that's really important for this agency is that as we move forward, we are very careful and thoughtful when it comes to minimizing risk. And so I just want to let you know that I support the 40 recommendations that were outlined in the report that we received today, and that I encourage OIPA and management to work closely together on implementing those 40 recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. It would be really great if we could consider item 18 and item 17, which are both the audit items, and have public comment, and then take we actually don't need to have a vote, but we just would like to hear these items so that then we can be able to move forward with the recommendations that were in there and you know, move the ball forward. So unless there's any urgent things other board members need to say, I'd like to see if we have public comment on both item 17 and 18.
Thank you, Chair. We do have one member of the public who'd like to speak on items 17 and 18. Tim Bylish, if you'd like to step up, you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Board. These are not prepared comments, so forgive me. I would have hoped that this item particularly would be at an independent meeting. It's huge. And I speak today, I'm a physician, Timothy Bylash. I live up in Mid-County Coastal, San Diego, Del Mar. And I want to thank the audit committee. I've been attending the newly formed committee, and I applaud their efforts and the difficulty of the task. And so thank you for this. The agenda, not the items including the agenda, but the additions are 323 pages. So anybody that thinks this is an easy task, I would comment on that. I'm trying to make this in some kind of an order. I would ask the audit committees and the executives to include some of the other costs besides any issues that have been contested. The cost of distraction, the cost of wasted dollars for administrative costs, which there appear to be increasing, and the cost of completions of the projects. The blue line, from an engineering perspective, in my view as a scientist, was an impossible task. And it was done during the COVID period of time, and I would just want to keep that in mind. I bill as an independent contractor, and my time working often overlaps with the invoices. And it's almost an impossible task. And so the final content, two items I would state is that it's near impossible sometimes to tell what is covered. In 2017, $23 billion was paid for fraud in the Medicare systems, hospitals billing, and 1.3 billion is the usual cost for 2 million babies.
I'm sorry, Tim, your time's expired. Thank you. If you'd like to submit the rest of your comments to me, I'd be happy to distribute them.
Okay, thank you. So no action is required on these two items. And I just want to make a couple of just quick announcements. So the two board meetings, December 2nd and 16, have been canceled. And we will be opening up a call for applications for board leadership. And that, please be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. And then the business for this year is concluded at Sandag. So I want to thank all of you again for your service, the staff, the board members, the public. And with that, the next meeting is on January 13th, 2023 at 9 a.m. So thank you, everybody. This meeting is adjourned.